about Piqué Subban a second ago. Grant Fuhr, right, who played on all those great Oilers teams. There's been a bunch, and the numbers are going up because in Canada, as here, you have a larger and growing number of West African immigrants. And just as they've moved into American football and things like that, a growing number of them have gotten involved in hockey. And imagine if somebody introduced, say, 11-year-old Christian Okoye to hockey. Imagine what that would have been like, James. So there's going to be a generation 15, 20 years from now of all these kids, Haitian kids and Ghanaian kids, Nigerian kids, kids from Cote d'Ivoire and the Cameroons. Ndamukong Suh grew up playing soccer, right? He got into our football, around 13.
Well,
Elijah grew up playing soccer.
Come on, to think of it, at first we have, what was it, the Jamaican bobsled team? Do they even make ice in Jamaica? It just shows how things have changed in my lifetime. I got about 20 years on you, but but just how things have changed in my lifetime. I got to see the great Jim Brown, in person, face to face, watching play and practice and stuff, go down to
and what
Pittsburgh.
Many people forget, speaking of sports that people don't often associate with blacks, but remember, he was also a two-time All-American in lacrosse.
He played lacrosse.
He didn't just play. He's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, he was all.
That's like saying, hey, Gary played a little baseball. Yes, he went from seeing lacrosse in about a year and a half to being one of the greatest of all time because he's Jim Brown. But as I was just mentioning, because of it was once a trickle, but now it's turning into a nice sized flow, and it'll be a flood in, mark my words, 15, 20 years. You're going to see whole lines, where it's 3 or 4 dudes whose family is from Haiti or Jamaica or, like I said, Nigeria, Ghana, whatever. Because if you're a big, tough, fast human being and you learn to skate, there'll be a place for you. See, the issue wasn't big, tough, and fast. They had that already. It was the skating. Now that they're getting introduced as kids, younger kids, to hockey, watch out.
Yeah, can you imagine a guy on skates with George Atkinson's or Jack Tatum's?
That's what I'm telling you. You don't have to imagine much longer. Give it another 15, 20 years, you'll be watching it.
It's sad. I know it's sad, but it shows you, like just kind of the era. We all, did that sigh when Darryl Stingley got hit, but on Tuesday, the coach showed that hit on practice. This is the way that you attack him. Much different game now. But
yes.
but Spencer, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I like to go back with this coach that we've been discussing here because I'm very impressed with him. Now, I ain't gonna lie about it. I'm not a NHL fan. I'm not. I've been to a couple of games with friends, had a good time, didn't understand what was going on out there, enjoyed the fights in the middle of the ring. That was pretty cool, but I had no idea the rules or nothing. But once I saw your questionnaire, I got to look and I went, really? There's never been another black coach? GM?
No, general manager. Yeah.
I'm like, what? Because they've had great players. So I'm sitting here. So we got this gentleman right now, just got a job and outstanding. But to me, it wasn't because he's black. He's 47 years old. He's a young man. He's had 15 years playing career in the NHL.
Yep.
It includes 3 seasons with the Sharks that he just got a job to from 2006, 2009. I mean, good Lord. I mean, he knows the game. He knows what it takes to make the job perform. And anybody that has a business or you're getting paid to help a business and make more money, they want people who knows how to do the job. And I mean, the biggest thing is, I don't know how many people even thought about this. Look at this man's network, at the people he can pull knowledge from. Yep. I mean, good Lord, his brother, Chris, is a GM for the NFL Miami Dolphins. His father, Bobby, was an executive for the New England Patriots in Houston, Texas. You want to talk about some man that knows how to run a business? He's got a network from hell. I'd have hired him first over anybody. I mean, seriously. He's been there for 3 years. He's played the game for 15. He knows the business, and he's got a network. Bam, bam, bam. Everything's checked. Hire the man.
There you go. There you go. You know, but like I said, you know, it's just nice to see how far things have progressed in certain areas.
Yeah, it's too big first, right? Obviously, he's the first black general manager, but also it's the first time that there has been at the same time and a family that has both an NHL GM and an NFL GM at the same time of any color. Right. So it's too big first, right there.
Yeah. And then while I was writing that question, well, today I wake up and we have a woman GM of an NFL team. You know, Bill, you want to tell us a little bit about her? Spencer filled in the gaps for Mr. Green.
Sure. Well, and obviously, my good friend Amy Trask was the first, what we call C-level, like executive suite level woman to work in the NFL, but she was working more on the contracts and business side. There's been slow creeping growth on the other side, dealing with talent acquisition, and I've gotten a chance to know Connie, who was the first female scout back with the Jets, who sort of fell backwards into it. She was planning to be a doctor. I got to talk to her a little bit, and she was at Ohio State, met and charmed Woody Hayes. He brought her around the program and sort of introduced her to talent evaluation. Well, you don't need to hear Connie's whole life story, but she's a fascinating person. If you haven't read her book, I highly recommend you read it. It's an amazing story. Like even how it happened, like her father had been a team doctor. She'd been around the game, but not in that capacity. And then, the amazing sort of what I call conspiracy of miracles it took to make Connie Carlberg a scout is an amazing story. But back to what we're talking about now. There's been creeping, what's the word I'm looking for? Growth, creeping, people getting further and further up. I remember when the Vikings first interviewed Catherine Arashi, which was years ago. Susan Toast Spencer was hired to be an Eagles general manager, though it was, the way that they were structured is a little bit different. So this is actually the second woman general manager, technically speaking. But the first was many years ago. And the way that they structured their team, the general manager was still mostly dealt with business. And of course, obviously, it was because her father, Leonard Toast, owned the team, right? But her actual title is vice president, of football operations. And she was with Philadelphia for a couple of years as an operations and player personnel coordinator for 2 seasons prior to her promotion. She also worked in the CFL, was director of football administration for the Argonauts, go Argonauts. Also worked for the Alouettes, right, in Montreal. Was an assistant general manager with them, and of course worked with my friend Russ Landy. Shout out to Russ Landy. So I'd heard about her some years ago. And so technically speaking, she's the second one, though she's the first one who got it through a true competitive interview process because she is not the daughter of the owner.
Okay. Well, hey, like I said, it strides. It seems like one day you're making giant steps, and we should congratulate those. Mr. Hayes, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How y'all doing?
Good to see you, sir.
Likewise.
Couple of big
Another
signings
Spencer
for
in
the
We have two
Longhorns,
Spencers
right,
in
Don?
here, y'all.
Okay,
Well,
I had two y'all talking. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying, congratulations on a couple of big signings.
Oh yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little college football here, and I'm glad I have you three gentlemen here because we see, everybody making these big changes. Texas, Oklahoma was moving. Now we see USC, UCLA, and everybody's talking about, I think the Big 12 rather is talking about adding 6 teams from the Pac-12. Of course, you got some gems in there that are still looking. Oregon is still, out there, looking for the Big Ten. It's going to be kind of interesting to see what happens with Clemson in the middle of all this.
And the other jewel in the crown, obviously, is Notre Dame.
And that's who we're going to talk about. So now a lot of people have talked about there being 5 spots for Notre Dame to enter, and they do play basketball, I believe, in the ACC. Mr. Fan is going to be on next week, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So guys, where do you think, Spencer? Where do you think is a good landing spot for Notre Dame in this
I'm gonna have
super
to.
conference?
I've got to break this down in 2 different things. When you say the best landing spot for Notre Dame, well, the number one thing as a businessman would be, say, independent. That would be number one because all the money brought in is yours. But by doing that, you're going to put yourself out of the big picture that brings in the big money. So to me, that's off the table now. The second thing is, do you want to be in a conference that you are playing teams with the most heritage, so everything that your whole college is about and the helmet games mean the most, then that's SEC. Now, if you're wanting to go into a area that you could possibly dominate, that's going to be Big Ten. That's my opinion.
Wow. You think USC is just going to come over here and run over my Buckeyes, huh? Got news for you guys. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Donna, what do you think? Well, give us your, you played in that big stage, so give us your opinion.
Well, I really think geographically speaking, they belong in the Big Ten. But that would actually boost that conference because you have Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin's good every so often, and as you know, Minnesota pulls off an upset or two every year. So I think the Big Ten. However, it looks like the SEC might be going after Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. And I see the reasoning. What they're trying to do is trying to leave like Baylor and TCU out of it, the church school. So maybe we should have a church conference. You get Baylor and Wake Forest with the Baptists, get SMU, Texas Christian, Brigham Young, Notre Dame.
There you go.
There you go. Hey.
They can play for the
Southern Methodist, right?
Oh, maybe start jumping pews now. Come on.
No.
And whoever wins that conference, they can have the God Cup, the Holy Cup, the Holy Grail.
Come on, man, the Holy Grail. It's obvious. It's right there in front of you.
I can't think of another. Outside. Let's see, Wake Forest.
Okay, Boston College, I guess, should be thrown in there
Boston
too,
College.
right? That's a Catholic school.
They're Catholic.
Yep.
But it's a great school, great heritage, great everything. Great. I mean, really they are, except for football. But they got everything else covered.
Might be a little crowded out there on the 50-yard line with all those coaches kneeling down, but we'll see. Bill, I know you've thought about this.
I mean, we've been talking, obviously, since I've first come on the show, we've been talking about where Notre Dame, we've all agreed for years that someday Notre Dame will join a conference, right? We've been talking about it forever. And it's like being the prettiest girl at the dance right now, right? That's what Notre Dame's doing right now is they're getting calling cards from the various gentlemen callers, right, at the cotillion, and they're going to weigh all their offers. And as was said, they already have a relationship. They've gone on a date with they're not going steady with the ACC, but they've gone on a couple of dates with the ACC, right? Maybe the ACC got to second base with Notre Dame, but no further. So yes, they play basketball, and for 1 year, right, during the pandemic year, they were a football member of the ACC, but once again, it was just a date, right? Nothing, no commitment, right? When the morning came, they were gone with the mist, right? So they're going to be wooed, right? That's what's about to happen. You're about to see Notre Dame get wooed. Boxes of chocolates, moonlit drive, all that, right? And of course, at some point, somebody's going to write a number down at the end of the night, and here's the number, right? And somebody's going to have the biggest number. And that's how eventually the courtship will end. And I have a feeling at that point, they will then decide to at least go steady with whoever that is, who has the biggest number, right? Because sometimes size does matter.
Well, it's a little early for Cribbing After Dark, but
I think Spencer has his hand up, or he's praying.
No, I got my hand up. I do have my hand because I got a question for Bill here.
Go ahead.
I love your analysis of the dating. So, going off of that demeanor, let's go with at the beginning of the homecoming dance.
Yes, that's where we are. Yes,
we had UCLA, USC, and Notre Dame.
Yep.
So, which one you going to pick to dance with first? So,
well,
obviously, the first two's gone.
Right.
So you only left with one.
Right. And Notre Dame is the prettiest girl who doesn't already have her dance card filled. Exactly. That's the point I was making. That the prettiest girl whose dance card is still open is Notre Dame. And Notre Dame gets you Chicago, right? It's not quite like getting Los Angeles, but it's close. Chicago is a big market.
So who would be next? Who'd be next after that? Once somebody takes and dances with Notre Dame,
yes.
Who
so
do you
once
take
Notre Dame's off the table, and no offense to whoever's left, it's a bit of a drop, right? It's a little bit of a drop.
I'm saying.
It goes to quote Don Hayes, it goes down to an Oklahoma 7, right? Well,
we are after hours. Go ahead.
Well, we're almost there, but I figured I'd play a little Don Hayes classic for you. So at that point, it drops down a little bit. So if indeed everyone's fleeing the Big 12, and Don, you would know better than I mean, I don't know if that's what's happening, but it sounds like that's what's happening.
It is.
Okay, so Oklahoma State is admittedly, the sister with the mole, but still, not bad, but there's a mole.
There. There's no money draw on that one.
Well, okay. They have a very sizable following, and the program itself is flush with cash.
Okay.
The program itself, T-Boone Pickets, they got money. They got money. And they have a large following. They travel well. Now, it's not a big media market. You're right about that. It's not like getting USC or UCLA. It's not like getting Notre Dame. You're not getting the big media market. You're not getting a bunch of eyeballs in terms of, a couple of million television viewers. But you are getting a rabid fan base. They are crazy nuts fan base. And they do have money. They've got money. They've got oil money. Well, that's probably most of the money is oil money, but they've got it like amongst their alumni. They've got money. They got money to throw around, and they travel extremely well. And if they have to travel to wherever to games, they'll go. They'll go to play Boston College or whoever they end up with when it's all said and done. If they're playing in the SEC, which they'd love, they'll go to LSU. They'll show up to those night games in the swamp and all that stuff. They'll do that. They will travel. They travel well. They're not Oklahoma, but they're close. They're Oklahoma with kind of a mole or maybe a slightly lazy eye. So that's
So you actually think she's more attractive than Louisville? Louisville's got a lot of money
that's
behind
a fascinating question.
Hold on, guys. Have we forgot about
We got
Clemson
Chris in the
this?
house.
Have we forgot about Clemson?
So
in this?
I'll land the plane real quick, and then I guess Chris will answer the same question. So the slightly bigger media market is the Louisville area in terms of television viewing. So that's the part. But who travels better? Oklahoma State travels better. They're gonna 20-something thousand of their fans will go to LSU, will go to Alabama, will go to LSU. Louisville doesn't travel like that, at least not yet. I mean, who knows? Maybe that'll change if they join a big giant conference. But to this point, no, they don't travel like that.
Chris, how you doing this evening?
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry for the later ride.
Hey, you had to do
But,
husbandly duties, man. That always should come first.
Yep, that's it.
Man.
Gotta, be the good dad. But glad to be back with you boys. So what are we talking about?
We're talking about Notre Dame and this current everybody's going here and there and like we're talking about if Notre Dame where should Notre Dame end up? I don't think that they're going to stay with they're in the ACC for basketball and football the
Sort of,
year,
kind of, when they feel like it.
Yeah. So where do you think Notre Dame should end up if we had these big conferences?
Yeah, it's looking that way. I'm not sure what you guys have said, but I think one of the best landing spot for them is probably the Big Ten and whatever that's going to be, because I think most of their competition is going to be in that area. Then now with them bringing, someone like USC aboard, or someone like that aboard, who's a big rival of Notre Dame's, that was one big reason they stayed independent, so they could play teams like USC and not be kind of pigeonholed to a certain schedule. But now as these super conferences kind of blow up and, they aren't border rigid, you got teams from California now joining the Big Ten, which was, majority Midwest schools. So to see that kind of development now, who knows how things are going to spread. So I would say it'd be best interest of Notre Dame to get in early with the Big Ten and whatever that's going to be, even though they have 16 teams now. See if they'll stay called the Big Ten, but we'll see how that develops. But I think that's probably their best landing spot.
Now, as you would, Bill and Spencer there, we're talking about Louisville after who would be the number 4 team after USC, UCLA, and then there's Notre Dame. And Spencer asked who would be the 4th, and Bill came up with one conference, one team, which was I think it was Oklahoma State. He finally decided on. Spencer asked about Louisville. I'm asking about Clemson. Why wouldn't Clemson be the 4th? The 4th big prize in this.
Don't you think they're more likely in the SEC than the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think that's a better spot for them as far as like the layout and the competition that they'll face. I thought I saw a story today. I don't know if it was true or not. Some people are just pumping fake news, but I saw Clemson, I think it was North Carolina, and a couple other schools were going to the SEC because someone debated whether why Miami wasn't included in this mix with Florida, and I think FSU might have been in there too. But I know one of the three
Florida
schools
State was one of the ones that was mentioned.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think the SEC is the best spot. I think one of the interesting points was whether the SEC might bring someone like Virginia on board to try to start spreading its reach more north now. Because basically it's going to be who are the super conferences and who can spread the furthest. The Big Ten kind of has the lead now, having that reach into the West Coast with UCLA and USC. So we'll see if now the SEC can try to spread north, maybe.
Don, give us your thoughts. Is it Oklahoma State? The sister with the mole on the nose, or what?
Well, Oklahoma State won 12 games last year, and they are a consistent winner. I think, like Bill said, they do have a somewhat fanatic fan following, and the same can be said for Texas Tech. For a team that never wins, Texas Tech, their fans are ape shit crazy. Of course,
Texas Tech catching strays from Dodd Hayes.
Yeah, but you're living in Lubbock, Texas, and so I don't know if you've ever been to Lubbock.
Is it worse than Waco? You described Waco.
Hey, Lubbock is a dry county. You can't even get a drink of beer up there.
Yep.
But when their traditions is throwing tortillas out on the field.
Yes.
And they've had to call games game delay because the damn tortillas are flying through the air. But I think Oklahoma State, like I said, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech are being pursued. I don't see how Texas Tech would actually fit the SEC. I think Oklahoma State would be a better fit, at least a little bit further east than Texas Tech. To me, Texas Tech could almost be a Pac-10 team. I mean, or Mountain West, somewhere out there. They're out in Desolation Panhandle area. I do have one question, James. Maybe you can answer this because you're out in California. And I just heard this on the radio today, and it made me think. Doesn't California have some kind of rule against playing or going state travel to states that don't celebrate gay pride or LGBTQZXYZ movement?
I don't really know, Don.
I know USC is a private school. They can do whatever the hell they want to. But UCLA
UCLA, you're right. I think they have. It's not quite as straightforward as Don said it, but they have a memorandum of understanding, I think is what they call it, regarding that. And they've had scheduling challenges when they, like BYU is a school that has, some difference with some of that about how they see those things. So they've had to alter a few things, but how do I say this? If the money's right, they'll work it out. I'm just
well. Hey. If I understand it right, when you go to California, they won't even let a direct flight go into Alabama because of our state. So you have to go into Georgia to get on a connecting flight out of Atlanta to get back to Birmingham to get to Alabama. So I think we're one of them no-fly zones.
All the FAA's fault.
Hey, I'm surprised they even let people come to Texas. Of course.
Well, I do know that they Christmas I was in Dallas, so and there's you can get a flight directly into Love Field.
We have a lot of California refugees coming to Texas, so
yeah. Well, hey. Don, you have Austin, which is
we have Austin. That's true.
Which is the California of Texas. So,
the people's
so whenever if I have a layover, I stop off in Austin. There's a taco stand after Don. I knew you could. Houston order fullback.
Mr. King, would you mind if I go off script just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Go ahead.
I got a question for Donald.
Okay.
I got to address this new elephant in the room. I got no choice in it. What do you think, Donald, about the ex-Alabama running back that's playing for Texas now going and hawking his championship rings? What's your thoughts on that?
It's about Keenan Robinson?
Yes.
I heard that and I was like, why would you do that? I mean, if I get a championship ring, I don't care which I'm keeping it. I actually have a Southwest Conference championship ring over my box here. So I'm not.
It ain't tricking if you got it, Don Hayes.
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I don't know why you do that. I mean.
Money talks.
I mean, he
okay. I was just curious.
He's recorded by Sarkisian. I mean, so I don't know. That's crazy.
I mean, I was just curious. You're a Texas man. I was just curious about that. I mean, I got my own reservations, but Mr. King let me step in here, so I'm not going to take over his time to answer. But thank you.
There are certain things that are kind of sacred to you. Bill, you might not have yours, but do you remember back in the day when they had the tradition of blood wings?
Oh, God, yes.
I, so
Oh,
you
yes.
know,
Oh,
yeah. So
that I don't know if it's still going on now, but it was certainly going on in 88, 89. So, yeah, that doesn't go, to my knowledge, it hasn't gone anywhere.
Explain that to me.
When you are awarded your wings, usually they have tabs in the back so that you don't get stabbed. But when you're presented with your blood wings, you do not have the little tabs in the back.
Oh, is that they pounded your chest?
Yes.
Ooh.
That's why they're called blood wings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
every episode.
So yeah, it's there are certain traditions, and like you say, you still have your ring, your championship ring, and it's something I never could understand either. But
Donald, it wouldn't kill you, but it hurts like hell. Just
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, that would be a correct statement. You nailed it.
Yeah.
I've actually seen that before, a video, but it was the Russian Special Forces doing it. The Spetsnaz. Is it Spetsnaz? Is that sound right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were fully loaded on vodka when they were doing it. And this is like 20 years ago, but
Sure.
I know Americans did that.
Oh yeah. Especially if you were a part of the 101st or the 82nd or Special Forces or any.
No one even offered me vodka, Don.
No, you didn't get the vodka until afterwards. And usually, and usually it was more akin to bathtub gin than it was vodka, but that's a different story. Come on, you're in Fort Benning, Georgia, Don. So usually you're drinking fire, more or less. But anyway, that's a different story. Spencer, you got a guy down there named Bryce Young, I believe.
Yes, sir, we do.
How's he
Heisman Trophy winning quarterback last year. Yes, sir, we do.
Yeah, and what's he gonna do this year?
California kid.
Well, how can I put this as gently as I can?
Well, hold on.
Go ahead. Oh, you're gonna make me dance now, all right?
Okay, we are officially after dark.
Ah!
Oh, it's officially after.
We now have after dark music.
Let's get it. All right, let's get straight up with this. All right, well, Mr. Young, I hope like hell that our offensive line in the offseason here gets nasty because he won the Heisman with a weak-ass offensive line last season. He got sacked 41 friggin' times, and he still won the Heisman. So if we can cut that in half this year, think what the man can do. And what we've got already in talent, oh, my God. All right. Let me break this down real quick. We have got a JUCO transfer just now, Malika Benson, that ran a 10.44 100 in high school. And he's a JUCO transfer, so he's faster than what he was. We have Terrell Harold, a transfer from Louisville that runs a 4.24 40. We got Jeremy Burton, a transfer from Georgia, their number one receiver. Of course, he only had 500 yards because Georgia don't throw the damn ball. All right, so he transfers to Alabama so he can get his 1,000-yard season. He's a track speed person. We have Holden, Jones Bell, Law, Leary, Anderson, Brooks, JoJo Earl. They all have track speed. So basically, what we've got this year is a track team for receivers. And I guarantee you, the other teams we're going to play against, their defensive backs don't run these kind of times. So it's going to be fun for them to defend us. The only thing we need is for Bryce Young to be able to stay on his feet because you can't throw the ball on your back. That's my opinion. I'll leave it there.
Hey, sounds good to me. Don, last time we talked, you guys had just signed Arch, and I think you only had 6 commitments, but by the end of the day, you had 9. But is there room for Arch this year? Is Arch going to be redshirted? What's going on?
Well,
You got
Arch,
2 good guys already there.
That's one more year of.
There's one more year.
Okay.
I think Arch was just getting out of the way, so it's not a distraction. He's a Manning. He didn't even go to the Elite 11 camp. I mean, he's like good. Yeah. There's nothing there they're going to teach him that he doesn't already know. So.
I'm a Manning.
But yeah, we're Sark is he knows that 2 years will be in the SEC, and so he's recruiting the type of guys that he had at Bama. We have some speed too. We just signed or got a commit from like the number 1, number 2 recruit at New Jersey, big old defensive tackle, 6'5", 330. He chose us over Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M. And Texas A&M has actually recruited a lot of defensive linemen, great defensive linemen in recent years. So it's good to steal them from the Aggies. It's always good to steal from the Aggies. I love it. But we're on the right track. It's just a matter if they can get all together. Last year we sucked. After going 4-0, we had that bump against Oklahoma where they had that big comeback, and after that we lost our knowledge of how to win a game, how to close it out. Fourth quarter, I mean, we lost 5 straight games in the fourth quarter, which when we had to lead at halftime, which is just almost unheard of. So I'm sure Sark has been,
that's growing pains, brother. That was growing pains. Yeah. I mean, new coach, everything that was expected. I mean, this year's going to be better. I promise.
Yeah, we actually 1/3 of the squad left, and we replaced them with better people. So, and we had the number 1 offensive line recruiting class this past year. They're expecting us true freshmen to 1 or 2 of them probably will start. So, yeah, there's going to be some more growing pains, but I think we'll be better.
Yeah.
But, Chris, now they have USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten by 2024, I believe it is. Don, Texas and Oklahoma are supposed to start conference play. What is it? The SEC? What year is that? When Texas and Oklahoma move?
2024.
Yep.
Okay, so
I believe.
So we're talking just 2 years, and like you said, we're going to have, instead of the Big Ten, we're going to have the Big 16. You're going to have at least 2 new colleges added to the SEC. How can we still have a 4-team playoff, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's going to get very interesting. I mean, I'll throw this out to you guys and see what you think. So one show that I listened to hypothesized that if it does end up being 2 big conferences, then say they're 20-team conference, whatever it is, you have your 2 division winners, then you have, 4-team playoffs from there, and then the division winners or the conference winners then face each other for the national championship. It seems just kind of the old school traditional way. But one thing they brought up is, however many teams you set the deadline of or the limit of for each conference, you'd have, a bunch of teams, whether they're your Oklahoma States, Virginias, whatever it's going to be, on the outside looking in, maybe have some sort of a relegation system that would now get those other teams that aren't the cream of the crop out of these bigger conferences and get the better teams in there, thus creating those super conferences. So I think that was an interesting concept that I heard that I thought I'd kind of bring to this show and toss out there and see what you guys think.
Bill, what do you think? A football NIT.
Yeah, or
Well,
relegation.
I mean,
like soccer.
it obviously sounds great to the outsider, but who's going to be the one that has to tell Vanderbilt, right?
That's who everyone pointed at too. They're like, yeah, it gets Vanderbilt out of the conference pretty quick.
I mean, it's like the talk you have to have. So what happened? Oh, Vanderbilt, a farm family adopted Vanderbilt, and now they have more room to play. Clearly, there's going to have to be some way because there's contracts. The thing that people somehow have kind of managed to ignore is that there's signed contracts. Now, I know, once again, if the money's right, they'll work it out. I just said that myself earlier. But some of these contracts are there's some poison pills in some of these. So now, obviously, some of these schools will swallow those poison pills with no problem. But not all of them can swallow these poison pills with no problem. So we'll see. Some of the ACC schools are now trying to see if they can get what do you call it? What's it? Something of rights. Not assignment of rights. The
Bill of Rights.
I'm trying to remember what the first word is. It's the something OR. The something of rights. That
anyway, we got you. Go ahead.
The point is that some of these schools would have to pay out a significant amount to get out of the deal that they're currently in, and some of them will just do it. It'll be no problem for some of them, and some of them will be more of a challenge. To sort of walk away because of the amount of money involved. So they're trying to see if they can negotiate down the amount it'll take them to essentially buy themselves out. But either way, you're going to see as the music, slows down and eventually stops, how many chairs are going to be set up. Some of these conferences don't want to be 24 teams, right? Some of them want to be 16. Some of them want to be. So we'll get a good sense eventually of just how large these super conferences want to be. And I think some want to be larger than others. So we'll see that also as well. The last thing I think that'll be decided is, and Spencer, I thank you for bringing it up, is how will teams decide how they value teams that they may go after, right? How much do you care about tradition and how good they actually are on the field? And how much do you care about what they bring to the table in terms of how large a media market they represent, right? How well do their alumni and their students travel to away games? Money, for those that hadn't heard, is important. And it doesn't always decide everything, but about 85% of the time it decides most things, I think, when it comes to this kind of thing. So we're going to have to see exactly, once again, we talked about writing a number up, right? With Notre Dame. I said somebody's going to write down a number that Notre Dame will say yes to, right? That I can promise you that it's the 7th of July, 2022. Sometime in the next 2 months, less than 2 months, sometime in the next probably 6 weeks, somebody will write a number down and show it to Notre Dame, and they'll be like, oh, we like that number. Yes, you've won our heart. And some of these schools will get a number to go away quietly. You know what I mean? Like Vanderbilt might be told, in exchange for you not putting up too much of a fight and joining the whatever it is that they're going to now, here's a nice parting gift, right? No hard feelings. So that's going to happen with some of these conferences, because if you are Wake Forest, and Wake Forest has actually been really good recently, but they're not a big cachet team. But yeah, if you are Vanderbilt, Northwestern is an interesting situation because they are in the Chicagoland area. And for a long time, the Big Ten pointed to them to see, look, we're serious about academics. We've got Northwestern. Now, they may decide to no longer need that. Maybe but it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of those schools that don't have the football cachet. And Northwestern at least has, but they're still number 2 to Notre Dame, though, in terms of Chicagoland football, ironically enough, even though they're much closer to Chicago than Notre Dame is. So it'll be interesting to see where they land. Like, we're talking about like the prettiest girls. What happens to the girls with good personalities, right? Because that's going to have to be decided as well. because everybody's got to eventually go someplace.
So, what do you think, Spencer? Are we going to have the NIT of football now?
How much
for the
time
ones
do
that
we
didn't
have
make
here? All right.
it?
Let me try to shorten this up as much as I can. This is just my personal opinion. Nothing to do with this station whatsoever. Mr. King, it ain't his. It ain't CTS Sports Room. It's my own big ass head decision here. Would be everything that's been happening is all about the TV contracts. I'm thinking that ESPN, Fox, CBS, all of them are pulling the shots. I think they finally got people who are sitting in the room with these decisions going on. And I honestly, truly believe that all this stems on who can bring us the most money. I don't think they give a damn about how many people showing in the stadium anymore. I really do. I don't think they give a damn about the guy's education. I don't think they give a damn if they get injured, what happens to them after they get injured. I think it's all about the money on TV ratings. That's me personally. So when you go into this with that mindset, you're screwing the student athlete. And I don't care if it's women's basketball, women's softball, swimming, football, whatever it may be, because I'm thinking that these big media people are going, we're going to take college football, make it its own entity. We're going to make them take it away from the rest of sports in college, and they're going to have to split it up between two. That's the way I think they're trying to do the NFL thing because that's how they make all their money. Yep. Now, that's just my opinion. I'm an old man, and I've seen people put money on the table many times. I've seen people put money in the ugly stripper pole woman's sport. It just I see this coming down the pack. I don't like it because at the end of the day, the student athletes are the ones going to get screwed out of it. Now, that's my opinion.
Don, you got a championship ring there. What do you think? Spencer got a point?
Well, yeah. Spencer's right. There's been a movement to separate football and NCAA that's been going on for several years now. And, it's, now we have the NIL, kids are getting paid. They're making their money. We got kids in Austin driving Lamborghinis and that type of thing. So, it's crazy. And I think eventually I was kind of kidding around about, having the church schools all form their own league like Baylor and, BYU and Boston
TCU,
College,
right.
Notre Dame.
Right.
Maybe the academic schools should do the same thing. Maybe you should have, Rice and Stanford and
Duke,
Vandy, Duke, have their
Northwestern, Stanford,
have a geek league,
right? So call it the SAT conference or the ACT
SAT
conference, whatever you had.
Chris, did we kind of either answer your question or just poke fun at it?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed everyone's comments. One thing I was thinking about is I'd love to see it develop into 4 conferences. I think that'd be kind of the dream, and then kind of work from there instead of a playoff system. But again, it's a long summer, so I don't think this is the last we'll hear of teams realigning at all.
But you're only talking about 2 years here. We got this season, next season, and then, like you said, by then we'll probably have at least 18 teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think there might be a little bit. Yeah, I think there might be more urgency this year as well, seeing all these teams jump board and getting that jump start in 23, 24. Like I said, you might see still some more movement this year to even, kind of solidify these conferences for that season and then see how it flows from there. But I think right now there is definitely an urgency to kind of be in on the ground floor for what's going on.
But
it's all leading up to an expanded playoff, guys.
But wasn't it last year when they voted that they would only have that they wouldn't change the CFS format? Wasn't
Yeah,
that just last year?
I think a lot of what we talked about too is it all is going to come down to money and see what the money dictates. And, if there's going to be more sponsors and more money and more games, then, we'll change the playoff format to 12 teams or 20 teams, whatever is going to make the most money.
Come on, Spence.
I got a question for Chris on this one.
Sure.
Well, actually, I got to praise you on one thing first. Back in my military career, when we was in shore, I worked a lot of security jobs in strip bars. And brother, that mic you got going on, you spent good money on it. You could get some serious money, telling Bambi to come up to the pole.
Nice.
Okay,
Yeah,
right?
I don't think
But
my
anyway, besides that,
that
it's just get a little laughter going in here. But seriously, on this one, for you, Chris, with the way all this is going, with all the college, the way we see the media doing, the way we see all this unfolding in front of our eyes, we have, once they do the super conferences, and that's the big story out there, is who's going to be the first ones in, the first of 24. So they can, I guess, break it down to 6 pods per division. I don't know how they'll do it. Anyway, but the bottom line is the people who are left out, the smaller colleges who needed the money playing the big dog that got their $3 million to get their ass whooped on a Saturday on national TV, that needs that money for all their athletics, is gone now. So what do? They just give up football? Do they just stop it?
No, I think it's going to create, just develop that creativity. I think you need to work to, who says there's going to be 2 super conferences? Why can't there be 3? Why can't there be 4?
They can be.
So like you got to strategize. You got to network in. I mean, how long did it take? Apparently it only took a few months for USC and UCLA to get into the Big Ten. But obviously there was some backdoor networking. People know people. And it's just developing those networks. And, maybe you band together 10 schools and you're like, hey, right now, me, Miami, Oklahoma State, Hawaii, like whoever, we're going to get all these teams together. Now we have the super conference. So I think it's going to take the creativity of all these athletic directors for the schools, as well as these conference commissioners who are now in a bind where they're like, oh, now my ACC or whatever is plundered and I now have to figure a way to generate revenue. I mean, I'm a big college
I agree with everything you just said.
I mean, I worked in college athletics for a decade, so I always want my college athletics to succeed. Like, I'm a big NIL guy. I'm so glad that finally passed. So I think it's just going to be that creativity of the athletic directors and the conference commissioners to kind of link up and form more super conferences.
There's an interesting thing, guys. A lot of times we talk about things on Thursday night, and then Monday you can hear the same things on First Take or ESPN. It's like all of a sudden it's like, well, like you said, Chris, it's like the light came on, and well, where are these guys going? And I think Bill said it best. Where's the pretty girls going to go?
And I'm excited for the my kind of schools like Montana, the FCS schools, who might now get a door open to be an FBS team, because I would love to see them play some of these bigger schools and be able to travel to some of these high profile teams and see my alma mater start raising their profile in football, because we have a tremendous program in Missoula, Montana. I'll hype them up right now. Go Griz. So I'd love to see them get on a bigger stage, see how kind of this realignment shakes out.
Well, I might as well mention my little school here, the Penguins. Our president is retiring after this year. You guys might have heard of a guy named Jim Trussell, and Youngstown State. So yeah, go Penguins. Since everybody else is throwing one out there.
I mean, I think it's just interesting to see some of those. And who knows what North Dakota State does? Like, they're a big football school level.
North Dakota State won a few national titles. As a matter of fact, we used to play North Dakota State. I'm not sure about how the conferences play out now, but we used to play Delaware. But that's another question. Where are these small conferences going to go now? I mean, everybody doesn't have a coach whose name is Deion Sanders.
Yeah, well, most of them don't have a coach named Deion Sanders. In fact, last I checked, only one does.
Eddie George.
Yeah, Tennessee State. You got Eddie George. Yeah. Hugh Jackson is at Grambling. I'm hearing some. Not everyone's thrilled with what he's doing, but whatever. I was recently on a Twitter.
You got San Diego State out here. I mean, you got a lot of.
I was recently on a Twitter space with some people who are very close to some HBCU programs, talking about a possible HBCU super conference, right? So there's going to be a lot of activity in the next few. I mean, as was mentioned, the music hasn't stopped. The other shoe hasn't dropped. A lot is still going to happen. And we're going to see some conferences flat out merge. What was it the ACC and the Big 12 said about a loose alliance or whatever they described it as, whatever. So friends with benefits, I guess is what we're talking about. I mean, to keep my analogy going, we don't have to get married. Heck, we don't have to say what we are necessarily, right? Who has to put a label on everything? We have a loose alliance. But there's going to be a bunch of things. Like, this thing is still very much in motion. And I think whether or not we truly get the God conference or whatever it was that Donald was talking about, or we will see some like-minded institutions that got left out or left behind, to reference the book/movie of the same name, who will have to find some way to band together and survive in this, in the future that will face them. So you will see some interesting and even some strange bedfellows with who ends up, clinging to whom for survival. For those who, don't already know this, football is a damned expensive sport. And obviously, if you're Alabama or USC or Ohio State, it doesn't matter, right? Because you have so much revenue that it doesn't matter. But if you're UTSA, if you're, well, they don't call it Louisiana Monroe anymore. No, you do. It's Louisiana Lafayette that dropped the Lafayette. They're now just Louisiana. That's presumptuous of them. But if you're Louisiana Monroe, if you're Eastern Washington,
if you're Boise State,
right? In a good year, you're breaking even. In a good year, you're breaking even after all of the expenses, travel, paying salaries, all that stuff. You're breaking even in a good year. So in a bad year, you're in the red a little bit. If indeed, as was talked about, the old money games, the old, as you said, get your ass kicked games on national television games go away. I mean, if you're, since we're shouting out our schools, right? Behold the green and gold. If you're Norfolk State, you need to get your ass kicked by Rutgers or Syracuse or whoever it is. That's your track team needs that money. Your bowling team, your golf team, your everything needs that money. So, and we lost our wrestling program 20-something years ago, at least in part because we couldn't get enough getting our ass kicked games to keep supporting our wrestling. Because
it's true. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, right. I wrestled. I can tell you that even though it's not a super expensive sport, it's a money loser for everybody except maybe 2 or 3 really big time wrestling programs that might break even. Might. But everyone else, it's a money loser. So, I mean, most of these sports lose money. And even football, for a lot of people, is a break even to lose money proposition. Unless you're, once again, the flagship programs where it's a big time money winner. So I'm not worried about, I mean, we're talking a lot about what's going to happen to Clemson. Clemson's going to be fine. I'm not worried about Clemson. Wherever Clemson ends up, they're going to be fine. I'm not worried about them. I'm not worried about, I mean, we talked about Oklahoma State, but they're going to be fine. Wherever Oklahoma State lands, they're going to be fine. I'm worried about what's going to happen to some of these schools that not everybody knows everything about. What happens to Middle Tennessee State? I mean, that's what I want to talk about. Like the teams that aren't going to be asked to anybody super anything, right? What will they do? And how will teams that were breaking even, maybe, what will they do? Because as I said, I don't think they're going to drop football, particularly if you're in the South, right? It's not really you can't do that. You can't, how do you say that to people, right? We're going to drop, most
Hey,
of the
Don, no more football next year, Don. Yeah.
I mean, most of the Southern schools that I've known that have dropped football ended up bringing it back. Like East Tennessee State, right? They dropped football, and then there was so much. What are you doing? We have to have football. UAB, right? University of Alabama Birmingham dropped football for, I don't know, 5 years, 4 years, something like that. But they never stopped practicing. Like, think about that. We don't have a football program, but we're having practice anyway. So that tells you something. Like, that's what in the South, even if you're a very small school and you're losing money hand over fist, it's extremely difficult to even bring up dropping football, right? Because people are like, what do you mean drop football? How could we lost $385,000 4 years in a row? That's why I mean we're talking about dropping it. I mean, we lost, that's 1.3 something million we've lost in 4 years. Like, how are we supposed to do it? But people will suddenly find money for you to bring back your program, right? You have it at UAB.
and it's going to happen, to some other conferences too. But let's talk a little NBA here, guys. We know Kevin Durant has now said that he wants out of Texas. Now, Don.
Not out of Texas.
Texas.
Well,
I mean, he did eventually leave Texas.
Well, I'm thinking about you, Don, when I said that, because I remember, and the show was still around then when Durant went to OKC, and it was OKC. Let's see, it was Durant, Harden, and Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
And Don, you predicted so many championships. You talked about, and I think we all agree about Durant's playing ability. But, I think the last time we talked about Durant personally, on this level is when he had decided to leave Golden State after winning 2 rings. And we were saying, at least I think the question I asked you then was, why would he leave Golden State? And you were saying he wanted his own thing. Well, he got his own thing. That didn't work out too well. Now they're talking about, like him going to the Lakers and a possible Kyrie. What sense does it make for him to leave the Nets if Kyrie's going to follow him to the Lakers? That doesn't make sense to me. But what's your thoughts on Kevin Durant wanting out of the Nets when he has 4 years left on that contract?
Well, wherever he goes, he doesn't need to bring Kyrie with him. Let's just get that out of the way. Durant, and I'm a fan, but he last 4 or 5 years he hasn't made the best choices. I think he said things that made me scratch my head. It's like there's 2 Kevin Durants. There's the Kevin Durant, his first 4 or 5 years of the league, and then there's the current Kevin Durant. And I don't know, maybe the publicity, the fame, the fortune gets his head, but he used to be very, very humble and not very demanding, and now he's kind of adapted that personality. Wherever he goes, people will come out and watch. And LA is the big media market. He's going to make millions of dollars, and he's going to get taxed millions of dollars in California. But I would still like to see him come closer to home in Texas and
sign with the Spurs.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know how he and Pop would get along. I think the old Kevin Durant would get along with Pop just fine. The new version of Kevin Durant, I don't know. But his home before Texas was East Coast. I think he's from Virginia.
Prince George County in Maryland. Yep.
Yeah, Maryland. Okay. I'd say Virginia. But okay.
Yep,
so, if he wanted to do the LeBron thing and go home like LeBron did, with Cleveland, I think that'd be kind of cool. But more power to him wherever he shows up, wherever he signs his contract. But don't take Kyrie with you. Don't do it.
What do you think, Spence?
Well, me personally, I think he needs to go back to Golden State Warriors. I mean, they have the big money contracts to match Durant's salary. They have all the young players that they could use for deal trading. I think that's where he needs to go.
Chris, can he mend that fence? He left them. They didn't kick him out.
Yeah, I think he's. I think he's done with Golden State. I think they're on to new things. I don't think they want to retread with Kevin Durant, even though they were very successful. I think. We talked about it on my podcast that just came out today a little bit about it. And two of our kind of options we were looking at are, I think, Phoenix is a good landing spot for him. Some people were
Can't
talking.
afford Phoenix.
They got some pieces they can move for him. It'd probably be maybe a sign and trade with DeAndre Ayton plus maybe a Miles Bridges. You can throw picks in there, or not Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges, and maybe some picks in there. It's possible. I think that would be a tremendous move for him. I think that would put Phoenix definitely as the team to watch in the West for sure. They floated the Raptors out there too, but I think that would involve moving Scotty Barnes, who I think the Raptors like right now, and is definitely a player, a 19-year-old you want to sacrifice for a couple of years with Kevin Durant. I don't see it happening. So he doesn't have as many options as I think, but I think Phoenix might be a nice landing spot for him.
But Chris, when you look at how the NBA thing works out here, how could Phoenix afford Kevin Durant without giving away just about everyone? When you look at his contract, what he's going to have to make, and not only that, but when you look at, let's see, like you said, Golden State can afford him. There's some other teams that are going to have to mortgage the farm, but how much do you think of an influence is this Rudy Gobert trade? Minnesota went out their damn mind.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. If we're going to move on to that, I definitely wasn't a big fan of that trade. But, going back to the Suns, I think, because right now Devin Booker's their only super max on the books. So, and you look at a team like the Clippers who have $193 million payroll. I think, money, you think about money, but, if you got an option to get a guy like Kevin Durant, you figure out how to make the money work. I still think they have some young talent there that is intriguing to another team. You got a guy like Chris Paul who is wanting a title. So if he's going to, prod the ownership maybe a little bit to get a guy like Kevin Durant to try to get the Suns over the hump, I could definitely see that. And then you build around, Durant, Booker, and Chris Paul. And then, maybe you can keep a guy like Cam Johnson, but I think you'd have to move either him or Mikal Bridges if you're looking at getting a Kevin Durant, possibly both.
Yeah, and I don't see Bam leaving Miami.
No.
So, Bill, you're the guy with the numbers here, man. Talk to us, first about, Kevin wanted to lead the Nets, now after Kyrie signed the contract. Maybe that's just a coincidence, but, he did wait until after Kyrie signed the contract and said he wanted to trade. But, and then, like I said, the impact of the Gobert trade. If you can get practically 9 players for Rudy Gobert, you have to get the bench and the coach and everybody else for Kevin Durant, right?
Well, here's one of the things, and of course Durant's an elite player, but when you're making trades in the NBA, you're trading contracts, right? And we were reminded of this when people started talking about Ben Simmons and some other players, that they forget that there's all these codicils and all these things written into these contracts about what you can and can't do. So, there are some realistic possible scenarios. And even the Heat possibly could be considered. They'd have to do a lot. So if for them to be a player, they'd have to move Tyler Hero, Nikola Jovic, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry, Max Strus, Omer Yurtseven, 3 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. That's all. And they'd get back Joe Harrison and Kevin Durant. Now, that nucleus with Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and the aforementioned Durant and Harris, ironically, still might not be the best team in the East. But I mean that it's a deal that could possibly happen. And yes, people mentioned earlier the possibility of Toronto. I don't think he wants to go there, but they have the the assets that they can make it work, and they have the space monetarily they can make it work. And somebody mentioned Golden State. So for it to work with Golden State, they'd have to free up some capital, and they might have to get a third team. They'd have to get a third team involved. So here's how it could possibly work. The Warriors, of course, would get Seth Curry, because why wouldn't you want to complete the set of Currys? So you'd get Seth Curry and Kevin Durant. You'd be giving up Jonathan Kuminga, James Wiseman, Moses Moody, Matisse Thybulle, Tobias Harris, and not one, not two, not three, but 4 first-round picks. And the 76ers would get Joe Harris and Andrew Wiggins. Now, I'm not wild about that trade. If I wouldn't do it, quite frankly, if I were the Warriors. But if you were trying to get it done, that would be a way to get. First of all, these trades are much harder to pull off than people realize. I mean, this is not. You're not playing NBA 2K on franchise mode. You've got to have. In case of Durant has to go for it, right? He has to be enthusiastic about the place that's being mentioned. 2, you have to make the money work, right? And then last but not least, you have to make the actual compensation work. But oddly enough, the actual trade compensation is maybe the easiest part of it, right? The sort of temperamental superstar and the contracts are the 2 hardest things to make it work. And to one last thing to sort of wrap it in a bow. So Don talking about Kevin Durant and his new apparently male life partner, World B Flat, aka Meta World Flat. The parable of the frog and the scorpion, yes?
Yes.
For whatever reason, he keeps letting that scorpion climb on his back, Don.
True.
Good point.
Spencer, Spencer, he's got 4 years left on his contract. If the Nets say, park your ass over there on the bench, there ain't nothing he can do about it for the next 4 years.
Well, right now, sir, to be perfectly honest with you, the free agency and the NBA is forensic. It's at an all-time high. I have never seen it this bad before that it is this year. And everybody's waiting on somebody else to make a move before they make a move. It's a wild, wild west to me. That's just fucking crazy. It really is. And there's a lot more moves to come. We ain't done yet, y'all. We got a lot more crazy shit coming down the road. We're just talking about some of the top dogs that was involved with this last year championship run. We got great players like Bill was talking about who are up and comers that's going to be traded here and there. We're going to have team shifts everywhere that we won't know who we're rooting for until they finally get there on the court. It's sad, but it's true. I mean, I hate it, but it's true.
But Don, if this other trade goes off now, Kyrie for Westbrook, I mean, then Kevin Durant is right back where he was in OKC, except now instead of James Harden, he's got Ben Simmons, who can't and won't shoot.
How would you like if I traded you this box full of anthrax for a bag full of tuberculosis?
You talk about not taking Kyrie with him. What about getting Westbrook back?
Well, they're going to have to invest in some counseling. Come, boys. Let's sit on the couch. Let's discuss your feelings. And so, Kevin, tell us why you hate Russell. Russell, tell us why you hate Durant. Okay, let's sing Kumbaya. Let's yeah. I don't. But you know what? I think if both guys were committed to putting that aside and winning, that's still better than taking Kyrie. I think on paper anyway.
What's your thoughts on that, Chris? I see you shaking your head there.
Yeah, I mean, if I like Bill said, I mean that's pretty much the analogy. You're trading shit for shit. But I think I'm not a Kyrie guy, so if I had to choose between the two, I'm definitely taking Russell Westbrook. I think still like in the long run, I mean, he hasn't been good the last couple of years, but I still think there's a chance for Russell Westbrook to do something special. I think Kyrie's such a wild card. Like, even if he's gonna play, you're like, does he want to play, or is something gonna come up and now he doesn't want to play? Does he now have a feud with this guy? Like, he's just so toxic as a player for the locker room that I just would never want Kyrie on my team ever again. I think just the funny thing with Russell Westbrook is that he signed his 5-year max contract with OKC, and if he does get traded, he would have played every year of that contract with a new team. He would have started with the Oklahoma City, then played with the Rockets, then the Wizards, then the Lakers last year, and then year 5 might be the Nets, which I don't think any player has done that in the history of the NBA. So kudos to Russell Wilson.
There you go.
Russell
Blazing
Westbrook.
trail.
Way to get paid. You guys got an interesting player, Chris. How does he fit into your? How does he fit into the Celtics?
I think he's a perfect fit. I think he's finally.
We're talking about
Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely that piece. Like I talked about on my podcast, I'm not sure if I mentioned it here before I was gone for vacation and everything, that the Celtics just needed that point guard that wasn't, so set on really scoring the ball, more facilitating the offense, especially when you have guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on the floor. Now you have developing guys like Robert Williams. You still have Al Horford. So you need that point guard to be more of the facilitator of the offense, the distributor, show up defensively. And, I love Marcus Smart, but he just wasn't going to fill that role. Derek White was nice when he came back. He gave him that spark, played good minutes here and there, kind of didn't show up towards the end of the playoffs, but was still, a good piece of the puzzle that kind of set him off on the run this year. But I think bringing in Malcolm Brogdon is, a huge addition. I'm very excited. Of course, just the key piece with him is whether he's going to be healthy the whole season. He has, battled injuries, when he was with the Bucks and then, of course, with the Pacers. But now I think, he's hopefully going to be healthy and be that piece that can kind of, help get Jaylen and Jason over that hump to be, even better players with him, putting them in the right places on the floor.
Now, Chris, I don't know. You weren't here last week, so I'm a little worried about Mr. Tatum.
Okay.
After all of the publicity and then the I'm sure there's the harassment. Come on, we know what kind of town Boston is.
Oh yeah.
And if you're a loser in Boston, they let you know it. I mean, there might not be a restaurant in Boston that he can go to right now. I'm not sure, but when you have a young kid like that, it's what, 23, 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he might experience a little battle fatigue going into next season? When he misses that first layup, or the first guy slaps that shot back in his face.
Yeah, I mean, Boston fans, we can be harsh for sure. I'm sure. I mean, I heard it. I listened to the radio after the series, and we weren't very nice to Jason Tatum, I'm sure, but I think part of that is him just developing that thickness and that resiliency. Like, hey, part of losing an NBA Finals is your fans aren't going to be happy, especially if you didn't perform up to your standard. And the
only thing that he's going to hear, Chris, is you scored 13 points in Game 6.
Yeah. So, and that should stay with him all summer. I hope he thinks about that all summer and is like, I didn't perform in the finals. I know Kobe's looking down, disappointed on me, because I know he's a big Kobe guy. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But I'm expecting a big bounce back from Jason Tatum. I think this is only going to be one of those things where, iron sharpens iron. He's going to build that kind of thick skin and hopefully come out with something to prove next year. I want him. I'll put him a dark horse MVP candidate for next year. Jason Tatum, big year. And he can go everywhere else. He's still young. We don't have that hate. built up for him yet. We know what he's done for this team. So if he does it again, though, now
like I said, that first game where he only has 12 points or 13.
Yeah, I mean, we're willing. We're going to give you second chances, but it doesn't go too far beyond that. But I think we know what kind of player Jason Tatum is. We know the contract we signed him to and what he can be. I think everyone just knows, especially him, that he underperformed. And we had definitely lofty expectations going into that series, especially after winning a couple games and then just kind of getting our butts whipped the last couple games. There was tough, but I think everyone knows who needs to perform better. And like I said, Jason Tatum needs to just every jump shot know, hey, this is all for next year, and he's going to be my MVP candidate for sure.
Zion signed the max contract, rookie deal, of course, worth up to $31 million. Do you think that some of those incentives might be that he has to play a certain number of games? I mean, he didn't play a game last season, right? But we see him, on YouTube, dunking the ball and shooting the ball. But as far as I know, he hasn't played a 5-on-5 yet.
Yeah, that's it's probably too early to label him a bust, but he's starting to look kind of like Ralph Sampson right now. I don't know. I thought that he would be, one of the explosive players in the league, and he kind of started off that way, but then he kind of went the way of Kawhi Leonard in a way, almost. That's a head scratcher. But hey, $23 million. Why play if you have that kind of money? But it's Zion is a guy who has all the talent in the world, but I'm not sure if he's there mentally yet. In so much the NBA or NFL, any Major League Baseball, whatever, so much of it's mental. And, if you don't have the mental, the physical is not going to mean a whole lot.
Well, don't let me ask you this, if you don't mind, Mr. King. On that one, he got a foot injury that set him out, correct? All right. But it was an off-season foot injury. He is a young man. He is a very talented young man who had struggles in his life up through college and everything else. So all of a sudden he's got this extra money out there, so he wants to enjoy life a little bit. I really think that this is a learning experience for him. His foot will heal, and I think he's going to be the great guy that you and we think he's going to be. I don't think
not we, unless he loses at least 60 pounds. But
do you remember a gentleman by the name of Charles Barkley?
Yes, sir.
Was he a physical specimen?
But I'm not putting him in Charles Barkley's category until he at least plays 10 games a season.
You put Charles Barkley's drive, work ethic, and Zion's body. Zion is top 5 player of all time.
Yes, yeah.
But we're talking about two different eras. We're talking about an era where you didn't get that participation trophy. We're talking about the era with Charles Barkley. You had to work your ass off for every damn thing. You got smacked down every time you opened a door. You opened another door. So it's two different eras.
Right. I mean, come on, you Wes Unseld. When you talk about guys, that played above their position, I mean, you can't really compare. I don't think you can really compare the two eras because that position, as the way Charles played, it doesn't really exist anymore.
I've read stories about Larry Bird that he would go shoot if he didn't make 100 free throws. Something, I don't know. It might be just hyperbole, but or legend, but he didn't go to bed. He didn't go to bed until he made 100 free throws.
He didn't leave the gym.
I mean, and this is a guy who did that when he was in excruciating back pain.
Yeah. And now if some of those guys didn't go home until they made a free throw, they'd live in the gym.
Oh yeah, they'd start.
I'm going out on a limb right here, y'all. I got this right here.
Ooh.
$20. I am betting y'all, whoever wants to take the bet, that this young man is going to see what he did wrong. His foot's going to heal, and next year he's going to double his numbers. Not from the year he didn't play, his freshman year, his first year. And he was great his first year, not the year without the foot. Come on, y'all. I say he'll double his numbers. He will be a better person.
You say he will double his numbers.
Double his numbers from his freshman year.
I might have to take you up on that.
Or his first year, whatever y'all want to call the professional, his first year there. And he had great numbers.
Didn't he average like 26 points?
Yeah. Like I said,
Now I did just take that off the printer, by the way. It's okay.
Yeah, I thought so. You didn't show the front.
But yes, I'm out there. I think he's going to prove himself, and I'm going to go with double. Anybody wants to take it?
Hey, I got your number.
Don't contact me later on that one.
Oh yeah, hey, I got your number. It might be before the show's over, but anyway.
What the hell?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, double it. Yeah.
I think he has a drive, and he made a mistake, and he paid for it, and I think he's going to grow from it. I really do, because he got the right mindset.
Yeah. Well,
so when you say
in other words, I believe in him.
Okay, so when you say double his number, you talk about points, rebounds.
Everything, all his numbers, everything. He doubles all his numbers.
I'll take that bet.
Yeah,
Me and you. He doubles all his numbers.
Wasn't his rookie year shortened because of COVID as well? Was it a COVID year?
That was his COVID year. That was the bubble year.
So are we just saying like it's just going to be because he's playing more games? He might. So this.
Well,
might,
you can't go with the year he didn't play nothing.
Right? I see Spencer's tactic here. More games equals more points, more rebounds. I see what your game is here, Spencer.
Yes.
Don't take the action. I called this.
Yeah. But is he going? What did he average? 20.
Bill, go ahead and call him. Let him know he's got a backer here.
So he was 22.5 points per game as a rookie.
Right.
So he has to be 44.
Yeah.
So I lost that bet off the get-go. Besides the point.
Yeah,
if you go total,
it's worth the money to prove that he's going to get better.
Not with CJ McCullough. He's not going to order for 44 points a game. But anyway, that's a different story.
That's what I'm saying. It's okay. It's okay. It's worth $20 to prove to y'all he's going to be a better person. He's going to do a better job. It's worth it to me. I'll back anybody that has a drive.
Well, now,
Bill, you might want to shut that door back there, brother.
No,
you might want to shut that door back there.
No, keep it open. Keep it open.
No, you might. Anyway, okay.
But well, hey, that's like I said, it sounds good, but what's your thoughts on that, Chris? Is Zion, in that 231 mil, is he going to have to play a certain number of games? Do you think that's going to be part of his incentives? I mean, but like I said, I think the first thing that I would do is that, look, you can't come in here weighing more than 280 pounds.
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely going to be incentives. But like, I mean, we definitely talked about Zion in my podcast as well. I think, my analyst who I had on talked about a great point. Like he's got such, resources around him as far as like.
We're gonna have to start stealing from you guys. What's your podcast again? Okay, all right.
Just a bit of that podcast. So we talked about like his training regimen. Like he has so many different resources to help him kind of keep his weight down. I'm sure they have some caveats to that too. But I mean, the big part of that is, so his original deal is only the 4 years, 193, which, is still a lot of money for a rookie deal. So he only gets the 231 if he's either an MVP or an All NBA player, which he could definitely be. Zion has the capability to do that. So I'm in Spencer's boat this year. I'm expecting a big bounce back from Zion. I think he knows what people are saying about him. He hasn't really been an injury-prone guy. Like prior to the foot injury, the only other thing was the shoe blowout, and again in the Duke game. But foot injuries are scary because, like we talked about it. He could end up being a Yao Ming, who's a Hall of Fame player who kind of battled through foot injuries, or is it going to be a Greg Oden who has foot injuries and then was out of the league, number 1 pick, bust? So I think this is definitely a testing year for Zion.
But bring an Ohio State guy in there. You just had to drag him through that. That's
yes,
okay.
but I think with that extra money on the table, especially getting that almost $40 million bonus for that 5th year, really incentivizes him this year to be the top player that he can be and really prove something.
I see Mike is in here. How you doing, Mike?
Hello, sir. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, Mike.
Mike always knows when we're about to start talking football, and he's just like, "Oh, that signal."
I got those satellites going on for me. Instead of SpaceX, it's Fantasy X.
I mean, we could go to football if you want to talk Zion, Mike. It's up to you.
Let's go to football. Yeah, Zion is a great athlete. That's all I know.
But I see he wore his Colts hat tonight, guys. So we could tell what kind of mood he's in already. So I'm good. This part of the program, guys, is actually probably for me, Spencer, and Don to learn. Chris, you probably know more about this subject than we do. But
I mean, it seems like Mike knows a lot of fantasy stuff too. But I'm happy to
Mr. 100 here. That's Mike's name, Mr. 100.
Yeah. I love
it. So I'm going to talk to you and Bill here, Mike, and you can kind of go first here. Tell us, is there a difference between pro ratings and fantasy ratings of players?
You mean like pro rankings, like Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback to play in the NFL?
Yeah, who's the best? Why is Derrick Henry this and maybe in pro football?
Oh yeah, I mean there's a huge difference, and an excellent example is a guy like Jalen Hurts. I mean, you wouldn't say Jalen Hurts is a top 12 quarterback, but you might say he's a top 12 fantasy quarterback because he at times has been a top 12 and sometimes even like a top 7 or 8 a couple of weeks fantasy quarterback. So yes, it can be a dramatically different set of rankings.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it holistically or individually. Individually, yeah, I think there's huge differences. Holistically, probably not. I mean, great football players are going to do great things, and when you're doing great things on the football field, they're going to, give you great points on your fantasy team. So, in a holistic sense, yes, I don't think there's much difference. Individual, yeah, you could say like I think Bill is using that as a great example as Jalen Hurts or just other players that do great things on the football field, but may not be able to transfer those to, fantasy points.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Or guys who generate more fantasy points than are commensurate with their value in a real football environment, right? So there's it works in both directions. There are some players who are great players who just there's great receivers for whatever reason they don't get a lot of touchdowns, right? They're incredibly important parts of their actual football team, and their team wouldn't win as many games without them. But for whatever reason, some other guy gets the ball when they're scoring touchdowns. It just happens. So, yes, while there's, I think, as Mike has pointed out, there's generally a pretty solid and usually sort of proportional relationship between how good someone is as a player if they play a point scoring position. If they how they are in the real world and how they are in fantasy. But there's enough exceptions that you can't just say that as a blanket statement.
Right. Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm going to give you guys a good example. Okay. In every mock draft or wherever I've gone to look at fantasy ratings, Christian McCaffrey is ranked ahead of Derrick Henry. Now, in those cases, I don't trust Christian McCaffrey to play as many games as Derrick Henry.
Mhm.
So even though Christian McCaffrey might be number 4 and Derrick Henry is number 10, I'm taking Derrick Henry.
I think that's
obviously several
that's-
things play into that.
Mhm.
Fantasy, redraft. I mean, Henry
No,
is 20,
well,
Henry's
I haven't
28
got
years
to the
old.
I haven't got to the redraft part yet.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm just,
So Henry's 28 years old, and he has a run through you style. And if you sort of study the history of fantasy backs that play that way, he's probably going to be fine this year. But if you're in a dynasty setting or a keeper setting, you might be a little bit nervous. I traded Derrick Henry recently because his value was probably about as high as it was going to be. And I'm in a dynasty. This is a dynasty, obviously. And I knew that the drop off is coming.
but you didn't trade him for Christian McCaffrey.
No. I did not trade him for Christian McCaffrey. And this is where I'm different from a lot of fantasy players. I want to have decent running backs, but I don't build my teams around running backs. I build around wide receivers generally. I like to find young, dominant wide receivers in dynasty, young, dominant wide receivers. And even in ones where it's, not dynasty, I will usually go early and often at receiver. And then sort of patchwork it a little bit at running back. And I've won, not all the time, but I've won with running backs that were, I had Austin Eckler in one of the leagues that I won. So it's not, I'm not always just sort of grab backing it at running back, but I've won leagues with, running backs that weren't, the best. I've won with 1 year with Philip Lindsay, it's not, it makes your life a little more interesting, frankly, if you don't have Derrick Henry or somebody like that. But especially in dynasty, certain kinds of running backs not shy away from, but I'm willing to sell high on them. That's what I did with Derrick Henry. I sold high on Derrick Henry because I think the drop off is coming very soon for him. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If he is 4 years from now just out there killing it, I'll be like, okay, I blew it. But
Chris, you play fantasy, Chris?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I definitely agree there. I think also part of it is too, you want to project these guys on a 17 games, season. So, part of it is going to be dealer's choice. If you're worried about a guy like McCaffrey getting injured, then, shy away from him. But, he's a 3-down back. He's on the field. If you're in a PPR league, then you're going to want Christian McCaffrey over Derrick Henry 10 out of 10 times.
Yep.
And, you just hope for the best. You backload your team. You think about, okay, I have Christian McCaffrey. What are the chances he's going to get injured? It's possible, but I'm still going to pick him and then just, think about that and draft have some depth at running back to fulfill that hole if it should arise. But I'm a hope for the best guy. I agree with Bill's kind of method of drafting. I'm more of a receiver guy. I feel like running backs can be, put in places, especially, you look at guys who just kind of pop out of nowhere, your Boston Scotts, things of that nature, who just, can be plug and play and, get you your points. So we'll see. But if, you offered me Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry right now, either redraft or dynasty, I'm still taking Christian McCaffrey both ways.
Okay. Staying with you, Chris, redraft league, PPR.
Yep.
When is the most favorable time to pick a quarterback, and how many should you carry on your roster?
So I've never been a 2-quarterback guy myself. Every league I played in has only been a 1-quarterback league. I haven't played in any 2-quarterback leagues. I don't go for quarterbacks early. I wait until a little bit later. I kind of see how the feel of the draft is. But I feel like there's always depth at quarterback. I don't look for the premier quarterbacks. I feel like every time I've tried to draft a premier quarterback, it has backfired for me. Like I lucked out and got Mahomes like the year he blew up in like the 13th round or something. I wish it was a dynasty league, but that didn't happen. So I always feel like there's some depth late. Guy I'm looking at this year is seeing how late I can get Derek Carr. He's a big target for me at quarterback this year. I think he'll slide a little bit behind like your Mahomes, your Herberts, possibly even Jalen Hurts.
Way behind, believe me, way behind.
But I think Derek Carr is a guy I'm targeting at quarterback this year, and I think he'll be a good guy you can get later in the drafts.
You'll be surprised if you look at the fantasy ratings where Derek Carr and Matt Stafford are. So and I'll talk about that later. But
I usually get skill positions at least for your first 8 to 10 picks. You don't want to. Unless you see a landslide of quarterbacks go and you're going to panic a little bit. But again, you're trying to judge your board, see how people are picking. And I try to go as late as I can with a quarterback.
I don't know if these questions, they don't really pertain to a dynasty league. But Mike, what's your thoughts on that redraft? When do you pick a quarterback and how many do you carry?
Well, it all depends. Like Chris pointed out, is it a 1 quarterback league or 2 quarterback league? And how many points are worth a touchdown from the quarterback? Is it worth 4 or 6?
Yeah.
In most now, unless it's a custom league, I believe quarterback a touchdown is 4.
Yep.
Yeah, for most leagues, correct.
Yeah, and standard leagues, like I said, unless it's a custom league, it's 4. So.
So if we're just looking at 4 points for a quarterback in a 1 quarterback league, the first quarterback
and a redraft, like I said, it's only a 1 quarterback league,
right? Even in a dynasty, more than likely, it's the suits follow the same way. I would say the first quarterback probably is going to go off in round 4, midway through to late. And then you'll have consecutive rounds after that where more quarterbacks come off the board. In a super flex league, you're probably looking at 2 quarterbacks coming off the board. So regardless of the touchdown, 6 or 4, you're looking at 2 to 3 quarterbacks coming off the board, maybe even 4 in the first round. So that's how much emphasis super flex leagues have on that position.
Bill.
Okay. First of all, I want to co-sign what Chris said about Carr, and I guess this will make Mike somewhat happy. Another guy I've been sort of snapping up late, who I think is going to produce, is Matt Ryan. I think people are a little low on him. I mean, obviously for dynasty because of his age,
right? Yeah,
that makes sense. But in redraft, I'm looking at his ADP and I'm thinking, that's a steal. I think he's going to end up being probably a top 6 or 7 fantasy quarterback, and people are too low on him. But yeah, so Carr and Ryan are sort of my bargain-ish guys that I think are going to outperform their ADP. And then I don't play anything that are designated at 2 quarterbacks, but I do play in some super flex leagues where very often your super flex is a quarterback, and I ended up finishing, I think, 2nd in that league, thanks to Jameis Winston. So thank you, Jameis. But who was my 2nd quarterback or super flex or whatever. But yeah, if you are in a super flex or a 2 quarterback league, then in the later rounds, where you're picking up that 2nd quarterback, guys that I would suggest or consider would include Jacoby Brissett. Since I guess it's looking more and more like he's going to end up being the starter in Cleveland. So that's a guy you can probably get. I mean, he might be available like right all the way at the end of your, depending on how many teams there are in your draft. Another sort of late round. I mean, obviously people have fallen out of love with Carson Wentz, and some of it for good reason, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up having a couple of really good weeks where he produces like crazy. Now, he's been inconsistent. I think that he'll be consistently inconsistent, but if he's your 2nd quarterback, you can live with that. That's another guy I think will be available deep, late and deep. Let me see. Anyone else that might be a real?
I'm gonna give you one right now, Bill. My boy Mac Jones.
There we go. Yeah, he should be available late in a lot of drafts.
Check out the offseason picks. He hit the gym. We got Devontae Parker. You and I are on board with Kendrick Bourne. I know that. We're gonna hype him up, I'm sure, a lot this year. I think big year for Mac Jones. I think they're gonna take the reins off a little bit. So if you're looking for a second quarterback late, don't be shy on Mac Jones.
There you go.
Okay, now, guys, this is kind of my strategy, and you guys can tell me, since like I said, you're the gurus. I have a team where I carried 3 quarterbacks. My 3 quarterbacks were the first one I took was Aaron Rodgers. The second one was Derek Carr, and then late I got Matt Stafford. So those were my 3 quarterbacks. And then I got 6 wide receivers, 4 running backs, tight ends, defense, and kickers. I play that week by week, according to the matchup. So, guys, Mike, Mr. 100, tell me, for me, it's in a regular league, it's been kind of a winning strategy because I can put my quarterback according to the matchups, and usually I don't end up with good backs, but I end up with guys like Tony Pollard, and guys like that. I end up with Renfro was another guy I kind of ended up with. I took him over Thielen because he stays healthier than Thielen. Waller, Waller was kind of a good take for me as a tight end because of the relationship between him and the quarterback. So, what's your strategy there, Mr. 100?
I think it depends on how the draft flows. I'd want to know exactly where you probably got Stafford at. But I only do 2 quarterbacks. I don't like to draft 3 quarterbacks because I think that's just
I was picked number 7 in this draft. So
okay. So do you remember where you got Stafford at? What round?
Around 7, I believe, because I think I got Rodgers at 4.
Yeah,
and then I took Carr at I think I took Carr and Stafford 7 and 8.
Yeah, so you got 3 quarterbacks in 8 rounds. I wouldn't have done that.
That's
good. Too many.
Sorry,
that's
you can only play one of those guys, and you pick 3 of them.
Yeah. So I'm just confirming, James. This is not like a super flex deal or something.
No. Your flex has to be either a wide receiver or a running back.
That would drive me nuts. Like I could never have 3 quarterbacks, let alone trying to pick. If I have 2 good quarterbacks and I have to try to decide who to play, let alone having a third one in the mix. But also now you're taking away extra bench spots for you to have some depth there for guys to have, your backups for your Christian McCaffreys, your handcuffs for injury guys.
Like I said, I got 6 wide receivers and I got 2 running backs.
Yeah, but you probably could have had better wide receivers and running backs.
Yeah, you're passing up a lot of value.
If you passed up, say you even passed up Rodgers and Carr and just went with Stafford in the 7th round, you would have had a lot more talent at those other positions versus 3 quarterbacks when you can only play 1.
Right. And you're probably going to play like Stafford every week. You know what I mean? You might play Rodgers, you might play Carr, but you're going to look to play Stafford every single week.
And then another thing that I do is I usually dangle that 3rd quarterback out there for a trade, for a running back or, whatever position I need. For somebody that's got a weak quarterback, that's weaker than them.
That's a better strategy with your second quarter. You want to do that with your second quarterback you draft, is use them more as a dangle piece, not draft an additional quarterback that you could possibly trade, but you're probably going to end up cutting a week or 2 into the season because you're going to need depth at other positions. Just don't do that this year, James. I mean, if we're gonna do a league, you can go ahead and do it. If you're in other leagues, don't do it.
Right. Yes. In fact, why stop at 3?
Yeah.
I mean, if 3 is good for us, better.
Yeah.
So if
Pick
ever
one.
we're in a league, James, draft a bunch of quarterbacks.
Go first round. You want to get that first one early too. You might as well go first round.
I've seen guys
And
do
then
that.
get your second quarterback in the second, your third in the third, and your fourth
That
in
way,
the fourth, and now you're done.
set. And you're set. You're set for those 4 quarterbacks, and then the other 12 picks, you kind of just fill in the blanks.
Right.
James is going for the no RB, no wide receiver, no tight end strategy.
Yeah,
I love
a defense. I figure, like I can change that week.
Yeah, your kicker and defense strategy is on point, but not your
that's fine.
strategy.
So instead of grabbing 3 quarterbacks, I should grab 2 tight ends.
I don't think so. I mean, it depends on who your tight end is, right? Like someone like Darren Waller, you don't need to grab a second tight end. But if you're waiting till the 9th round or something, and you're a tight end 10 already, and then you could probably either wait a little bit or draft one there and then draft one way late because they're all going to be the same. So
after Waller, the drop off is pretty much Hawkinson, Fairmouth, and who's the other tight end?
I mean, there's several tight ends going to have big years this year. I think that.
I think Hutchinson is going to have a good year in Detroit because
I think Noah Fant's going to have a very nice year. I mean, there's a bunch of tight ends that are going to produce this year. So yeah, I mean,
you have to kind of read the board, see how that's one of those things where if you see a lot of tight ends going off the board, then kind of look and analyze and see like, all right, these guys are probably going to go. But if you have a guy late like Noah Fant, who I got like in the 13th round, like last year or the year before, you can find production out of tight end. Like that's definitely, something you look for a little later. Or you just kind of follow the board, see how it's playing out before you kind of jump for a tight end. But again, James, if we're in a league, as early as you want, baby, get that tight end.
No, like I said, usually tight end and kicker and defense are usually like, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, I mean, tight end's very rarely spot that it is ever going to pop off either. So it's very, it's such a small discrepancy you usually see in points between tight ends. Some guys might score 14, but you can probably find a guy, off waivers if you need a plug and play that can get you at least 8 or 9. So, that 5-point difference is going to be huge in the tight end area.
Yeah, you're going to get 4 good tight ends. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce for sure.
Yep. And
then maybe Darren Waller. But there'll be 4 good tight ends, and then the rest from maybe Kyle Pitts. But anywhere between like tight end 5 or 6 to tight end 17, they're all the same.
It's all the same.
They're all the same. They're going to put up the same points.
I'll give you an ESPN team that I drafted late last night. Josh Allen. Josh Allen is my quarterback. Cook is my running back. Cook and Aaron Jones. Marquise Brown, Hunter Renfrow are my wide receivers. Gesicki is my tight end. Josh Jacobs is my flex. The Bengals are my defense, and McPherson is my kicker. Now my bench is Aaron Rodgers, Juju Smith-Schuster, Melvin Gordon, Russell Gage, Jarvis Landry, Alan Lazard, and Dave Njoku.
Okay.
Yeah, if you get a chance, if somebody gets an injury at quarterback, the good news is that you should be able to trade one of your quarterbacks, and I'm guessing you're going to probably try to trade Rodgers, to maybe upgrade at your, flex or upgrade your wide receiver depth or something, or even maybe a starting wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely need to target moving Rodgers. Find a team that has a weak at quarterback. Try to target a number 1 wide receiver. I think Lazard's a nice pick this year. He's
Lazard is on my bench.
Yeah, he'll be a target kind of share for the most part in Green Bay this year. So I like him for sure. But I think you definitely need to bolster your wide receivers a little bit. So try to trade Rodgers.
I took Gage just because I think that he'll fit in good with that Tampa Bay offense. Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe he'll do better with a guy like Mahomes.
Mhm.
But so yeah, that's usually kind of the strategy. So guys, well, we don't want to leave Don sitting here all by himself listening to us.
Hey,
So
it's okay. I'm just listening. It's all right.
Don's
It's all good.
taking notes.
should wide receivers or running backs be your first concern when assembling a team, and how much of each should you carry on your roster? We've kind of talked about that already. So what do you guys think here? I got a bunch of wide receivers, and usually these are late guys. You know, the scenario is that you're picking two of these guys, and they're your number 3 or 4 wide receivers. The same thing with your running backs. They're your number 3 or 4 running backs. They're not your starters, but these are guys that you're going to put on the bench. And the list of wide receivers I have is Thielen, Renfro, Boyd, Gage, Tim Patrick, and Van Jefferson. Those are the wide receivers. The running backs, I have Melvin Gordon, Tony Pollard, which I picked up, but he's like 114 in most leagues. Chase Edmonds, Cordell Patterson. Come on, help me out here, Bill. What's his name?
Ramondre.
Ramondre.
Or
Ramondre
Stevenson, yeah.
and Ken Walker. So I got the Pats in here. Yeah. Tell me, what would you take out of these guys, Chris?
So if we're doing wide receivers, I like the top 2 names the best. I like Thielen and Hunter Renfro. I think both of those guys are gonna, benefit off having just huge number 1 targets in Devontae Adams in Las Vegas now, and Justin Jefferson with the Vikings. But the key thing, of course, is whether Thielen will stay healthy for the whole year. I also like Tyler Boyd out of that group. Just, the Bengals seem to have a high-powered offense moving into this year with Joe Burrow seeking to kind of just be that guy. So I see him airing it out a lot this year as well. Looking at running backs, it's a good mix. I definitely like Tony Pollard probably the most, just because Zeke's always been that guy that has injuries pop up, and Tony Pollard's always that guy like, oh, I wish I grabbed him off waiver wires because he's going to blow up and end up starting a couple games this year.
Yeah, and you can get him. That's another guy that's fell down. You can get deep, even though he's going to carry most of the workload most of the time.
Yeah.
But you get Zeke for the touchdowns, right?
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
Pollard for the yards.
Yep. And then, so I like Pollard for sure. Cordell Patterson's always an interesting name. He's just so versatile, but again, he's getting up there in age, so I wouldn't go with him as much. Ramondre Stevenson, great name. I like what he does for the Patriots, but with Damien Harris being the primary ball carrier, he's not going to see as many touches. I think the other name to look for is Ken Walker this year. I think he's going to take some big strides for Seattle and possibly, be that primary ball carrier now moving forward. So if I had to pick the two wide receivers, I'm going Thielen and Renfro. Running backs, I'm going Pollard and Walker.
Mr. 100. Is he here?
Oh, sorry. Got trapped in by the Giants game. I will go a little bit different than Chris. But if I was to go first, I probably would have done exactly what Chris did, but just to shake things up a little bit, I'm going to go Adam Thielen and Tim Patrick. I know Chris picked Adam Thielen, but I want to go a little bit different than Hunter Renfro, so I'll go Tim Patrick. And then at running back, this is pretty stacked. Good situation. I like Pollard as well. I like Stevenson as well because Damian Harris, I don't know if you can trust him being healthy, but just to go a little different, Chase Edmonds, and then I agree with Chris again with Kenny Walker.
Okay, Bill.
So I'm trying to remember all the names again.
Okay,
the
wide receivers are Thielen.
If Thielen stays healthy, yeah, but I don't think he will. So I'm going to deviate slightly. And I like Boyd a lot, and they're going to throw the ball like crazy. So Boyd should be a consistent, in a standard scoring, consistent 8 to 12 points, and in PPR, way more than that. And then, okay, so Thielen, Boyd. Who else did you mention? Oh, Renfro. Yeah, right. Renfro is the slot god. I mean, what are we talking about? You got to have the slot god. Okay, and then running backs, it was Chase Edmonds, Ramondre Stevenson, Pollard. Pollard's definitely one of them. And who else?
Melvin
Gordon.
Okay, keep going.
And Cordero Patterson.
Let's see.
Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. Gordon, Pollard, Edmonds, Patterson, Stevenson, and Walker.
Kenneth Walker?
Yes.
Yeah, for Seattle.
Huh. That's an interesting one. The thing about the Seahawks is they've been known to give you the old head and shoulder fake about who you think's going to be the primary ball carrier. They're almost like the Patriots in that way. It's like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be the number one. Oh, he's not? Oh. Right? So I'm not 100% sure who's going to end up being the dominant ball carrier. I keep hearing they love Rashad Penny, and Penny's looking great, is what I keep hearing.
Yeah, we heard that last year, too.
Oh, I know that. But, I mean, what if it's true this year? I don't know.
Well, he's been great when he's on the field. It's just he's going to be on the field.
Right.
Christian McCaffrey's great when he's on the field, but is he going to be on the field more than 12 games? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I guess, gun to my head, based on the running backs, I'd go Pollard Edmonds, I think is where I'd be going. But Walker's a fascinating – once again, if we're talking dynasty, Walker's the number one. But we're not talking dynasty. So I'm a little lower on him because he's a rookie. He's going to take a little while to learn the ins and outs. He's not going to probably be on the field on third down because he doesn't know all the protection stuff yet. So, yeah. That's probably what I'm doing there.
Yeah. But remember, these are your third and fourth picks, running backs.
No, I understand. I'm saying even amongst third and fourth, I prefer Pollard and probably Edmonds.
Yeah, I mean, they're when your Derrick Henry or your Christian McCaffrey's on a bye week or whatever, or
I can get Thielen and Renfro 3 and 4. I will be very happy.
Yep.
Okay, guys, let's get to real NFL here. And Bill, I got to start with you because I don't know whether this is fact or fantasy here, but I've heard and I've read in a few places that they're talking about putting a dome on Soldier Field.
Okay, they can talk all they want. The building is on the Registry of Historic Places.
Yeah.
So it's talk. Next question.
Yeah, but what was Wrigley Field the same way though? Was that on the?
Yeah. So they can. They're allowed to do certain things, but there's things they're not allowed to do. So, as I remember, the constraints are you're allowed to add temporary seating, like to add additional temporary seating. You're allowed to change the jumbotron or scoreboard or whatever. You're allowed to. What else are they allowed to do? You can make changes to the field surface. So, I mean, not that they would, but they could put in field turf or something like that. Thank God they won't, but they could. And they're allowed to make changes to the clubhouse as long as it's consistent with the architecture of the rest of the building or whatever. But they would not be allowed to put a dome on Wrigley. They would not be allowed to put a dome on Soldier Field. Next question.
I'm glad they wouldn't do that.
That's your city council. I'm just saying, it's like,
Well, it's not even city council. It's actually the what are they called again? The something of historic. It's the
state
historic. Out here, it's called historic preservation. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So that society or whatever yeah. So it's not. They're not an elected group. This is an appointed group. So no, they're not the city council.
Don, your favorite guy, Brett Favre, he says there's going to be a drop-off in productivity with Adams without Rodgers. What's your thoughts? You agree or disagree?
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, I mean, you take away. I'm trying to find an analogy here. You take away Patton from Eisenhower, and the war lasts till 1946.
There you go.
That's a good analogy.
I'm not gonna lie, that one went over my head a little bit.
I'll send you a really great book called Genius of War, and you'll be all caught up. Have you read Genius of War, Don?
I've read it, yes. I read that back in 8th grade, actually.
Oh, God.
I read the Patton papers. I read the Fighting Pattons. I read Genius for War.
Did you see the movie Patton? That's the main question.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I read To Kill a Mockingbird or something like that.
Hey, so
Something like that.
way off topic, and you can find it online. Several years ago, one of Patton's former officers, his son, was going through his Foot Locker, and he found the typed speech that he gave at the beginning of the movie. And it's about 4 pages long, and you read it, and he's throwing out all kind of F-bombs and MF and called Hitler a cocksucker. I mean, it was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds like
movie,
Patton, all right.
Yeah, the movie really cleaned it up. But Patton, he was very creative at the.
He was very creative. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, Don. He was very creative. Mike, what are your thoughts? Is there going to be a drop off here?
I think what Don said was pretty much right on. I mean, yeah. And not only that, it's the fact that Davante Adams was pretty much the lone receiver at Green Bay,
right?
And now he's going to go with Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, and there's definitely a lot more competition for volume. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see Davante Adams like falling off a cliff here, but one's the quarterback's a definite Hall of Famer. Derek Carr. Right now, no, but is a very, very good quarterback. But not only that, you also have, like I said, a lot less volume in Las Vegas than you did in Green Bay. So that's sort of an odd to me. I don't know why Brett Favre was saying that or whatever. If he was just
because he loves drama, Mike.
I guess. I mean, he definitely does. There's been plenty of drama around this guy. So, yeah, it was.
Come on.
Obvious.
He's the original Aaron Rodgers. Come on, man.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
What do you think, dear Chris?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that we all said. Again, the analogy went a little bit over my head, but I think we're saying that he's going to have a down year. So,
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're going to see both guys have a down year. Obviously, they had a lot of chemistry together and were very successful tandem. But obviously, like Mike said, moving Davante Adams to the Raiders, there's a lot of targets to go around there at that team, so he's not going to see the volume that he saw in Green Bay, so obviously his numbers will go down from there. And of course Aaron Rodgers' numbers will see dip just because he doesn't have that security blanket in Davante Adams. He's going to have to build those relationships with new receivers, which of course going to dip his numbers down a little bit. So I see both sides of the fence taking a little bit of a dip this year.
What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, and I'm glad someone finally said why. Yeah, I think indeed you will see a little bit of a drop, but it's mostly just because of the ball being spread around more. I think it's just that simple, that they've got a better group of receivers. I mean, there's a lot of really good options to go with the places to go with the ball. I think that's the real reason you're going to see a drop off.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But I think at least he has a quarterback that can get the ball out there to him, which we'll talk about probably next week or whatever. But Bill, will Davis Mills prove to be the type of quarterback that Lovey and the Texans can win with?
Well, I mean, the Texans are going to struggle, but it won't be Davis Mills' fault. It won't mostly be Davis Mills' fault. I think he's going to show that he's going to show enough that they're going to continue to try to build around him. But it's going to be another couple of years where this team's ready to contend. They'll still, I think, be one of the first 6 or so teams drafting next year. So the good news is they found adults, in the organization. Lovie Smith is a consummate adult. They've had some, what's the word I'm looking for? Instability and some people with personality peccadillos in the past in that organization that have not always been the best for their future growth. And whether or not this team becomes some sort of like juggernaut or whatever, they'll at least be solid. Almost boring, but boring in a good way, because the Texans have recently been boring and not been boring, but exciting in the wrong ways. So this team will be less exciting, but in all the right ways to be less exciting.
Come on, Mike. They're in your division.
Yeah, they got a huge hill to climb. The offense is a little bit better, of course. I think Marlon Mack is going to be serviceable. They drafted Damian Pierce, who should be, pretty much like a younger, youthful Marlon Mack. And then you got John Michie there. They also drafted to play. But Brandon Cooks is exciting. Nico Collins, we'll see in his second year how well he does. Brevin Jordan is another second-year player. But these are a lot of youthful athletes on this offense outside of Marlon Mack and Brandon Cooks. I like Davis Mills a lot. I think he has a good future, but is he going to be a superstar quarterback? Probably not. But he'll be a serviceable one himself. He's going to be someone that either goes to backup duty and is like one of the top backups. Not this year. I think this whole season they're going to try him out and see how he does. But I think he's going to be a future in this NFL.
What do you think, there, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of, we'll see with this year with Davis Mills. One of the things to think about with Davis Mills is if he had waited and come out this year, he probably would have been the top quarterback draft.
Yeah, he would have been. That's a great point.
So Houston could be in a good spot with him. I think it's good to kind of give him this year to develop and not just kind of toss him aside and be looking to the future, because you might have, a future quarterback in Davis Mills. But again, like Mike said, he's not working with a lot in Houston this year, so it's going to be a tough year for Davis Mills.
Right.
So hopefully he can show enough to build some confidence in Houston, because, like I said, he would have been the number 1 pick at quarterback this year, so he would have, some stability there if he was with another franchise and came out this year. So hopefully Houston can recognize that, give him some time to develop, and recognize his weapons are weak this year, but if there are a few bright moments, maybe you can build around a guy like Davis Mills.
Don, we've had so much talk the last couple of weeks about your boy Baker. Well, the drama is over. He gets traded to the Panthers for a conditional 5th-round pick, which means it could be a 4th-round pick. Probably will. Now, the Panthers coordinator, McAdoo, he wasn't impressed with either Baker or the quarterback he has now, and now he has both of them. So what do you think? And then when you think about the draft and they traded up to get Corral, Don, what the hell's going on in Carolina?
Carolina is they're in bad shape. I think of the two, I think Baker will probably win the starting job, but that's not saying a whole lot. He's going to have a lot less weapons to work with than he had up in Cleveland for sure. And so, if they win 7 games this year, I think they can call it a success. I just don't like where they're at right now. That's not to say it's going to be like that for years. But I think just talk about Houston, compared to Houston's going to suffer. But, if they win 7 or 8 games, I think Lovie Smith will be coach of the year. Should be.
Yeah.
But
Coach of the decade if they win 8 games.
Yeah. But I think that's it'd be a stretch for Carolina to be there at this point with their roster.
Bill, I mean, come on. They still, they gave up a 2, 4, and 6 to get Darnold.
Yep.
And now they're giving up a possible 4th pick or 5th
Either
pick
5th or 4th, yeah.
Yeah, for Baker. And like I said, you traded up for Corral.
Yep.
I mean, what's going on there? You guys make some sense of this for me, because I don't understand.
Well, first of all, if you know me at all, you know that I don't really believe in trading up. I'm a trade down, and almost, especially when your team is bad, right? When your team is bad, I always believe that you'd be trading down because you're not 1 or 2 players away. I mean, literally, if Aaron Donald and Tom Brady had been drafted, this is still a team that might win 7 or 8 games. So unless you believe that one of the players they drafted is going to be one of the greats of all time, I'm not a fan of especially when you're a bad team. I'm not a fan of trading up. So that's the first thing. I think you should have been trading down, not up, quite frankly. I'm not convinced Matt Corral wouldn't have still been available. I don't know. We'll see. He's a talented guy, but there's some character stuff on him that I think would have pushed him down a little bit. He might have been available still a few picks later, whatever. I don't know what their plan is, to be perfectly honest. I'm not sure I understand what they're trying to accomplish right now in Carolina. They, like some teams, I'll reference the Bears. It's clear they are hitting the reboot, right? They've sort of embraced the suck a little bit, right? And they're going to continue to turn and churn that roster. And by 2024 or so, I think 80 to 85% of the players on the roster now will be gone, right? But we understand that. We know what that is. And then some teams are trying to rebuild on the fly. You have a Steelers pillow, whatever, over your shoulder. That's a team that doesn't seem to realize you don't have to keep trying to patch it together. You're allowed to be bad for a year or two, but the Steelers don't seem to get that. They're always, patching up the plane while flying it. And then you have, obviously the other situation is if you're a contender, right? You're a team that's expected to win the Super Bowl. You have to act like that. You can't, make decisions that won't help you to win the Super Bowl. Those are 3 ways you sort of have to treat team building. And the Carolina Panthers aren't doing any of them. So I'm not sure I know what's happening there. I study teams. I study all of them. I watch what they do. I look at where their GMs have worked before, what coaching tree are their coaches from. There's even training staff. Where were they trained? Where did they come from?
What size shoe? What color
my point is that the Panthers are a team wrapped inside a puzzle, stuck inside confusion. I don't know why they're doing this. I don't know what they think they're going to accomplish.
Well, maybe you can shed some light on it, Mike.
Well, as far as Corral goes, or for really any of the rookie quarterbacks go, none of these guys are ready to start. The only reason why maybe Kenny Pickett could start for the Steelers is because you got Mitchell Trubisky, right? And the same thing goes for Atlanta, right, with Desmond Ridder. Right. But for any other team, these guys were drafted to serve time at least a year or two. And Carolina is one of those teams where Matt Corral, they don't want to start because he's just simply not ready to. And to prevent that from happening, what do you need? You need two startable quarterbacks. And I believe that's one of the reasons why they brought Baker Mayfield. This is going to be a quarterback battle between Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield.
Woo, get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, let's get excited about that because hell yeah, I can't wait till Monday Night Football. Yeah, it's you'll see 4 weeks of Sam Darnold. You'll see 4 weeks of Baker Mayfield. they'll just keep rotating. And I like as what Bill said about the airplane, just patch it up. And whatever it is, we don't want Matt Corral as the captain of this airplane because it'll just go straight down.
Well, hey, Bill, we're jumping anyway, so we don't care what happens after we get
Right,
out the door.
right.
But,
There you go. I wonder if Matt Rule has gotten his blood wings yet.
Chris, I don't think you were you here for that conversation. Yeah, you were here for the blood wings conversation. Go ahead.
Honestly, I mean, I think everyone's kind of hit the nail on the head with Baker. But honestly, if I was a Panthers fan, I'd be stoked. Like, I think going to this year, if I had Sam Darnold as my quarterback, I would be like, I have to watch 17 games of Sam Darnold. Shoot me in the face, please. So now that I got Baker, I feel like, hey, he was a former number 1 pick. He, I think he brought the Browns to the playoffs, didn't he? Right? So,
yes, he did.
So he got some success. Like, I don't know why people are just kind of dogging Baker a lot because, I mean, he was successful with Cleveland, and, I feel like he kind of got the shit end of the stick with them going to Deshaun Watson, and now I'm so glad the Browns have to eat what they've kind of stewed up for themselves there with the Deshaun Watson fiasco.
Yes.
But I would be pumped if I was a Panthers fan. Like, at least you have a watchable quarterback now. I don't think it'll be, we're probably doing a lot of tongue-in-cheek here. I don't think it'll be as big of a quarterback battle as we anticipate. I don't think Sam Darnold's their guy. Baker's going to be starter week 1. We started week 17 for them, and maybe he does something special. Like, who knows? Baker.
There you go, comeback player of the year, baby.
There we go. Like, I'm all on board on Baker this year. Let's be Team Baker, guys. Let's go.
Don, Pro Football Focus ranks the Eagles 7th in roster talent. They rate the Cowboys 16th. How much should Dak and America's team fear Philly?
That's such a rivalry. You can throw out everything when those two play. They play twice a year and they usually split. And I don't see this year being any different. I'm very critical of the Cowboys, but I think their talent on paper is probably right outside the top 10. Like 11, 12. That's just my opinion. But, Philly is, they're capable of doing good, but there's something about Philly that I don't know. I just don't trust what happens there. I have the same feeling about that with them. And then one other team's division, the Washington Redskins. Well, not Redskins, but the Commanders, yeah. So, I mean, in that division, you never know what you're going to get. Like, to quote the Wake Forest Gump, that team's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Bill, what do you think? Talking about the Cowboys.
Oh, Bill's on mute.
Is Bill muted?
Yeah.
Bill's on mute. Mike.
I kind of
Eagles roster.
I kind of. I'd have to look at it. I don't think the Eagles have that good of a roster, but I could be wrong without looking at it. I think I can't really make a fair assessment. But I don't like Jalen Hurts. Miles Sanders hasn't looked all that great. They have Devontae Smith, who was okay. They got AJ Brown. That is, something. But for the most part, their offense to me was just, I don't know, average. So 7 seems very high of a number to me. And then just for the reverse with the Cowboys, 16th. I mean, if you're not looking at like Michael Gallup being hurt and those kind of things, then to me you got Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Michael Gallup, and then CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and so defensive wise, I don't know comparative because I'm not really a defensive guy, but it seems very odd to me. If I had to pick 2 numbers and one was 17 or one was 7, one was 16, I'd go 7 to Cowboys and 16 to Eagles. But again, I'm not PFF, think tank, and all that kind of stuff. I do believe that, as Don said, it's probably going to be a split game season. And for me, I think it all comes down to quarterback play. Eagles or Cowboys are going to win this division more than likely. And if Jalen Hurts can be somewhat good, then maybe I'll give the edge to the Eagles. But yeah, right now I would pick Cowboys over the Eagles to win that division.
What you got, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I hope you guys can hear me. I had to switch my setup a little bit. So,
You're good.
yeah, I'm definitely agreeing with what everyone said here. I think the Cowboys, between the two squads, they have the better roster makeup. I don't really like what the Eagles have done. They do have the strength at wide receiver with Devontae Smith and adding A.J. Brown. But again, Jalen Hurts is a big question mark, another guy who hasn't proved it this year. I think Jordan Davis was a big pickup on defense for them. He'll be a hog in the middle. But overall, if I'm looking team by team, I'll still take the Cowboys this year. But we'll kind of see what the Eagles can do moving forward. They got some good talent on both sides of the ball.
Bill, I'm sure you studied roster. Who has the better roster, the Eagles or the Cowboys?
Yeah, obviously the best roster in the. And once again, this is one of those things where the bar is not super high, but the best roster in the NFC least, as people come to call it, is clearly Dallas. But they're also a team that's a little thin, right? That's the issue with Dallas, and I think it will continue to be the issue with Dallas, is the drop-off between starters and the guys that come in if starters get hurt. And you can say that about them at almost every position except probably running back and maybe wide receiver. But if you look along their offensive line and defensive lines, injuries would really hurt them. Their secondaries got a little bit of depth, but not great. I mean, they're a team that has a good amount of starting talent, but not great bench, not great depth talent. That's the only issue I'd say about them. But yes, the most talented roster, yes.
Don, this is kind of you're not the Falcons guy, I know, but I'm looking at this roster here that the Falcons have assembled, and I realize it's the roster of 53, and it's going to change. But Don, the Falcons, they signed the veteran wide receiver from the Packers, Allison, and then they decided that they take Eddie Goldman, the defensive tackle, former Bears. And then all of a sudden, they pick up 5 more Bears. They got 6 Bears on the roster that couldn't make the Bears. Don, what the hell's going on with the Falcons?
I don't know. Ever so often, it's very rare where you'll get someone that gets cast away and picked up by someone else and end up having a great career. I just think that whoever the GM is with Atlanta probably saw something he liked. Atlanta has been a team that has kind of underachieved in recent years. They had a good run 4 or 5 years ago, but sometimes you make over your team and you see things that other people don't see. Perhaps I know. From a coaching aspect, I've had kids where I'd say, you know what, we have him playing in the wrong position. Maybe he's not an inside defensive lineman. Maybe we can move him. He's kind of lightweight. Let's move him outside on the edge, things like that. Or sometimes you'll take a defensive end, make a linebacker, defensive end. I've seen a safety spin down to linebackers. So, there's some of that might be going on. But, these GMs, they make the big money, make those decisions. So it'll be interesting to see how Atlanta goes this year.
Come on, Mr. 100.
So I don't know who the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator. So sometimes what occurs, like if you look at Miami, you'll see that the 49ers hire a lot of San Francisco players because the offensive coordinator, GM, head coach or whatever it may be, likes these players. They run the same system, so they want to bring in those similar players, and because they know them, they know how well they can run those systems. I'm not that big of a Falcons fan to could tell you that if that's the situation or not. But either way, the Falcons have glaring holes like all over the place. So anybody that they probably can bring in is probably going to help fill something.
Bill, what do you think about that Falcons roster? Full of
Sure.
ex-players.
So Terry Fontenot is yet another one of the young black GMs in the NFL. We now have a good number, a handful of black GMs who are less than 45 years of age. It's sort of surprising and exciting thing. I remember him as a player at Tulane, yet another GM that I've got scouting notes on. He was a team captain and a pretty good, strong safety. He was a scout with the Saints for many years. He eventually became their director of pro scouting, then assistant general manager, and then vice president of pro personnel. He's getting his first chance to be a GM, obviously, with the Falcons. And like I said, with some of the other teams we're talking about, you walk in the door, you look at the team and the way it's built, and you think, oh, this won't do. And, of course, in the case of this particular team, the reason it won't do isn't because, they necessarily didn't have some good players, but because of where those players were in their life cycle versus where the team was in how close it was to being able to contend. And so when there's an imbalance between where your best players are in their career and where your team is, between, its place in the league in terms of contention, when those things don't line up, you've got to make a decision. And decision, like I said, similar to what I talked about with the Bears, they looked at some of the players they thought they could get something back for and began moving on from them. Getting Drake London, who's going to be their ex-receiver, is going to help them. They're going to have a big-bodied, tough-minded guy who's going to come up with a lot of contesting catches. They got Brian Edwards, former Raider, Auden Tate, formerly of the Bengals, Kadero Hodge, formerly of Detroit by way of the Browns. You mentioned Geronimo Allison. I think he's mostly going to be a special teamer, though, James. I think he's going to be behind, well, at least 3 of the 4 guys I just named. Tate, Edwards, and London are all going to be ahead of him on the depth chart. Frank Darby, who's probably also going to be mostly a special teamer. And then they have some undrafted free agents going to fight it out, maybe to also either be a practice squad. Like I think Stanley Berryhill has a chance to make the practice squad. In the slot, they have Alamade Zacharias, and he's backed up by Demir Bird. They've got 2 offensive linemen I really like. And, of course, they've got Kyle Pitts, who is a budding superstar. On defense, they're going to give up some points. They're going to go just letting you know now. So, for fantasy purposes, look for teams that are going to play the Falcons or players that are going to play the Falcons. I do like D'Angelo Malone, who they drafted. I do like Arnold Ibikiti, who they drafted. I think those 2 are going to end up being good. Grady Jarrett's been a really good player, but he's getting towards the back half of his career. Eddie Goldman is a professional football player. I like A.J. Terrell. He also has a chance to be special. Casey Hayward's very good. After that, it's, I'll give you one other name to remember. This guy was actually a undrafted college free agent, but I really think he not only will make the team, but I think he's going to see some rotational time at D tackle. Spelling Eddie Goldman is Timmy Horn from Kansas State. Watch out for him. And then, they're going to give up some points, like I said. So it's a rebuilding project. And they brought in Terry Fontenot to do that. And I'm willing to bet during the interview, Terry Fontenot said, I'm going to have to blow this whole thing up, right? And they're like, yeah, Terry, you got it. Yeah, we're okay with that. Yeah, if not, they shouldn't have hired him because I know what he's planning to do. And he wants to rebuild the team which usually what's happening, you bring someone in from another team. He wants to rebuild the team in the essentially in the image of the Saints. So they're going to want to draft their Alvin Kamara in the next draft, their version of Alvin Kamara. They already have their Jimmy Graham / Marcus Colston all in one in Pitts. They don't have their Matt. Well, we'll see. I mean, not Matt. They don't have. We'll see if they have their Ryan Breeze, whatever. We'll see what they have. They have what they have at quarterback. Obviously, that's a solve for X at this point.
We know they're going to be high. What 4-13, maybe something.
I mean, that's what we're looking at. Probably looking at 3-14, 4-13, maybe 5-12. We do. So you have Arthur Smith, who obviously comes from the Titans, so he loves duo blocking and smacking people around. So they'll probably do a mix of the two. Probably some of his exotic smash mouth stuff combined with ball control passing and the kind of a defense that they ran with under Dennis Allen with the Saints. So probably be a melding of those two things.
Yeah, well, too bad Demetrius isn't here and we could talk about busted kneecaps, but we'll wait for that next week. Matt Jones, Raekwon McMillan, and a revamped linebacker core. What should we expect from the Pats this year, Chris?
I mean, I'm having big expectations. Like I said, I already hyped Mac Jones up a little bit during our fantasy football segment, but he's coming in looking, just beefed up this year. It looks like he's ready to kind of show some stuff here in a sophomore campaign. I'm guessing Raekwon McMillan made the list because he's an Ohio State guy. So, I mean, I'm excited to bring him. He's a former second-round pick. And
a sub-package linebacker.
Yeah, exactly. And we've always wanted to address, like I've talked about enough, the defense needs a little bit of bolstering this year. The one thing I'm still scared about for the Patriots is they're just what they're going to do at defensive back. I like what they did drafting-wise. It seems like I've heard good reports on Jack Jones out of camp. They seem to like him a lot. So we'll see how the Pats defense wants to respond here, but I'm expecting a big thing from this year. Of course, I would have liked to see some more address to the defensive linebacking core especially, but hopefully your boy Raekwon McMillan can come in and make some plays.
Hope so. We'll see. Don, final thoughts for the evening, my man. Always glad to have you here. And didn't you say you how's the weight training going?
That starts in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I'll give you all an update on that.
So you get your tractor tires ready for them to be flipping them?
Neither Mike, Chris, were you here last week?
I didn't. I popped in real quick just to say hi to you guys. Just make sure you guys didn't know that I had died or anything since I've been gone for 2 weeks.
Well, Don gave us last week. He gave us a story of how he became the strengthening coach for the cheerleading team. Don.
Yep.
Oh, nice. What, at Texas?
It's my high school in San Antonio.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of a funny thing how I got it, but Anyway, so my final thoughts. My final thoughts are related to world events this evening. In previous shows, we have discussed a little bit about, women's athletics. There was some going on in the WNBA. I have yet to watch a WNBA game, and there's only one NBA player I can name. And that's because she played at Baylor. Her name is Brittany Griner. Well, Brittany Griner decided to go play in Russia and took some cannabis with her. Kind of a bad time to be violating another country's laws because there's a war going on over there, and we're on one side, and Russia's on the other. And she got thrown in prison, and the Russian penal system is very let's just put it this way. There's a lot of countries to go to jail in. You don't go to jail like in Mexico. You don't go to jail in Turkey. You don't go
Thailand.
Thailand,
yeah. Thailand.
We've seen Midnight Express.
Oh, yeah. And you don't get in jail in Russia.
I've been there.
Yeah, so Russia's not a good place to be in.
Where's the place where they cane your ass?
That's the
Singapore.
Philippines.
Singapore, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not going to talk about legalization of pot or all that. I'm just going to say this. Her coach made the statement, well, if it was LeBron James, we would be going head over heels to get him out of Russia. And I'm thinking, say what you want to about LeBron James. LeBron James isn't going to take drugs into a foreign country. Smarter than that. So here, this cautionary tale: do not violate other countries' rules and laws when you're over there. Don't be the ugly American.
Don't be dumb.
Yeah, do not be a dumbass. And apparently, Brittany Griner was a dumbass. That's all I'm going to say about that.
She just pled guilty today too.
Yes, that was probably a good thing.
What else she's going to do at this point?
Yeah, I mean, you're in Russia. Are you really going to be found innocent? I mean, seriously.
Well, it's not just that. They already were lining up a prisoner swap, and it couldn't go through unless she entered a guilty plea.
Yeah. But sadly enough, I think the guy that's been there since 2018. Maybe you might want to give him a little consideration, and the other guy that's been there, and it's not that I'm being sexist or nothing like that, but if you're going to want to let people go, then I would start with the guy that's been there the longest. Who it just so happens to be a guy, but I mean, I would think that he would deserve more consideration, but then again, that might be the sexist in me. I don't know.
No, one reason I brought this up is that there's a show on National Geographic Channel called Locked Up Abroad.
Oh yeah.
I watched it several times, so I know a little bit about what happens in Russia. Russian prison. Stay out.
Well, I don't know a lot about Russian prisons, but I can tell you to keep your ass out of American prisons too. So.
Yeah, right.
But.
Prison in general.
Prison in general. Just don't be dumb. Just don't be a dumbass, and you'll be all right.
Let's
plus,
see, Bill.
Plus Russian hassle oil can't be that good.
Yeah, if you're not, I think she would have came off better if she had tried to bring vodka into the country. But
they might salute her.
Bill, your final thoughts for the evening, my man.
Well, my final thoughts, and this will probably be something that is near and dear to the heart of one Donald Hayes. Born this day, July 7th, 1950, was one Julius Whittier, who was the first black player or first scholarship black athlete at University of Texas. And Julius Edward Whittier is a native of San Antonio. Born on the 7th of July. His father was a doctor. His mother was a school teacher and community activist who led protests against a couple of local or regional, I should say, grocery store chains that wouldn't employ black cashiers. And he had a uncle who was the Beaumont, Texas head of the NAACP, who had his house firebombed for his troubles. And there was a lot of attention to his recruitment because there were rumors that he was going to be the first black player at Texas. And he eventually did decide to sign with Darrell K. Royal. And, of course, because in those days there was no freshman eligibility, he spent first year on the freshman team and then was on varsity in 1970. So that 1969 team, in fact, was the last all-white national championship team. So every team that's won the national championship after that had at least one black player somewhere on the roster. And he was a substitute on the team that first year at both linebacker and guard, and then eventually began to play a little bit, played a little bit of offensive tackle even. But he was a good enough athlete that when he ran, when they were just running, running gassers or running whatever, he ran with run with the linebackers. I mean, not linebackers, but the running backs. He was that fast, and was on 3 Southwest Championship teams. The team went 20-1 in conference and 28-5 overall in his time at Texas. And the last season there, they went 10-1. And it was the first year, my first year I can remember watching college football, in fact, was this last year at Texas. And they ended up number 3 in the country, including a upset victory over Alabama in the Cotton Bowl that year.
Mm-hmm. Alan Larry.
Yes. He was, of all things, a philosophy major, also studied dance, and even danced at one point with the Austin Civic Ballet. And during his college education, he received advice from former President Lyndon Baines Johnson. Darrell K. Royal brought him, along with a couple other players with him, to Johnson's ranch and Johnson suggested he continue his studies and look into public affairs. Briefly worked for the mayor of Boston, and then went to the Lyndon Baines Johnson School of Public Affairs, got a master's degree in public policy. Then went back to Texas for his law degree, and eventually became a JD and a licensed attorney. Was a prosecutor for the Dallas County District, was a DA, assistant ADA there. And then unfortunately was forced to retire due to Alzheimer's. But he went to several alumni events, spoke about his experiences, including, some of the unpleasant experiences he had. Texas was not always the most welcoming place for a black player, especially in those days. And last but not least, when they talked about building a statue to Earl Campbell said, "I won't have a statue of me there before one of Julius Whittier. And I demand that his statue be larger of the two."
Wow.
So Earl Campbell said, "I won't let you build a statue of me until you build one to Whittier first, and his has to be larger."
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of how respected he was in the black community in Texas, period. And, of course, how important he was to other black players who came to University of Texas, including, of course, Tyler Rose, Earl Campbell. So I don't think enough Americans know how important a person Julius Whittier was. So that's my final thought.
Well, thanks as always, Bill. Always enjoyed talking with you and getting some fun facts. Chris.
Yeah, always good to be with you boys. It was good to be back here talking some sports with you guys after 2 weeks off. Always remind everyone you can check out my podcast, Just a Bit Inside Podcast. Follow me on social media at A Bit Inside Pod. My final thought, I'll kind of tally off of Don here. Sabrina Ionescu put up the first triple-double in WNBA history with 30 points. I think she had 31 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists, something like that. So she had a hell of a game. So I'll just piggyback off that, shine a little light on her and her accomplishment. But again, go check out my podcast too.
That was the game the other night, right?
Yeah, it was last night, I believe.
Yeah, it was record number of 3-pointers. Mm-hmm. A lot of things happened. Yeah. It was a pretty exciting game. Even if you just watched, I think I had it on mute because I had another show. But yeah, take us home there, Mike.
Well, thank you. As Chris said, it's always great to be with you guys. Always learning and just a great time. Today we lost one of or at least one of my favorite actors of all time, in James Caan, and born in 1940, and just in great movies: El Dorado, Rollerball, of course, The Godfather. Many great scenes in that, and then my favorite movie of his, of course, is Misery. And when I found out, it touched me. I'm not someone that really gets upset over these kind of things, these actors and stuff like that, whatever. But when someone brings as much joy to the screen and is such a powerful actor and someone that you just go, that guy or that woman is a badass. And that's how I felt about James Caan. So losing him was a little emotional for me as far as actors go. But rest in peace, James Caan. You'll definitely be missed.
Hey, guys, my final thoughts are, always glad to spend my Thursday night with you guys. Appreciate your time and look forward to talking to everybody next week.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
See you next week.
See you guys next week.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great night, everyone. See you next week.
Later, fellas.
Good night.